Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We're on show number 2 today. That is live. I've got a lot of work to catch up on, and I thought, you know what? Let's just do a video later tonight. So here we are. And what this is a board we had prepped earlier, and it's an ASUS Tough Gaming Z690-PLUS Wi-Fi. And I allowed it to get way too hot because I was testing it. And after the CPU got super hot, messing around with the voltages, sometimes the motherboard would turn on and sometimes it wouldn't. So I wasn't quite sure what happened. The CPU should protect itself. I ended up taking the CPU out, putting it into a different motherboard. I set this board aside and said, I'll look at it later. That was a couple months ago, maybe 6-8 weeks ago. Now is later. So the other thing I did is I went on to Amazon. And again, because I don't have a customer for this, I just thought, let's play with it. It's under warranty. We can send it back if there's a problem. But I thought, let's just get a cheap CPU for it and just test it and see if it's not working. And I bought a return to CPU from Amazon that I haven't had any bad ones or fraudulent ones, but that's what this is. I haven't tested it. It's a 12600K. That means we have to provide our own cooler. And I'm thinking of using the Intel, what is it called? The Laminar cooler, which I think I have one right back here. Forgot to grab it before the show. This is all happening very last minute. Yeah. In fact, I've got 2 of them here. And then I'm going to combine that with some DDR5 RGB RAM. So this will be an RGB build. I don't know yet what case it's going to go in, but I don't even know that that this is going to work, because if the damage to the board is somewhere on the voltage regulator modules, the VRMs around the CPU, that might have been caused by too much heat for too long. I mean, I let this thing heat up for a good hour and it got hot. So hopefully I didn't damage anything. I can tell you that I stripped all the parts, the RAM, the storage, the CPU, the cooler, and moved that over to a different build, and everything's fine, no problems. So there was no issue with the CPU. And what would happen is sometimes you turn this on and it wouldn't post. And then for no apparent reason, you turn it on and it would work. I couldn't find any reason. I didn't have time to deal with it. I had other things backing up, and I just put this aside. It's got like a 2 or 3 year warranty on it. So regardless, it's been sitting. Now I figure for testing, I've got a brand new Fanxiang S880. I really like this brand. I know you probably haven't heard of it if you're new here, but they use all the same components as the big brands, but because they're a smaller brand, they don't have the overhead and they can charge less for effectively the same thing. And then for RAM, I've got this Orion V from GeIL. This is DDR5. And this amount of RAM is what? 6400 speed, 16 gigs times 2. So 32 gigs of RAM right there. And then for a power supply, I'm just going to use our standard test power supply, which right down here is an EVGA. This is an older power supply. Look how long these cables are. Holy cow. I think I found this on the floor at Studio A. And I'm like, how long have I had this? I didn't even know this was here. Does it have a manufacturing date on it? Serial number, part number. I don't know. It's a few years old, but it's been barely used. It's mostly just sitting around. So in any event, I thought, let's prep a board, Why not? And we can do the overhead camera tonight. Let's turn this on. And let's see if I can turn that just right, like so. And let's go to, let's see, HDMI input, which is right there. Now, we were using this earlier, so I shouldn't need power. The battery should be enough. And the key word in that sentence is should. Now, that's not going to work. It's not the input, it's the close-up camera. If I select the right one, okay. Now the question is, can we get it aligned where we need it? Let's see. Oop, now I know why they call the motherboard tough. It's tough to film it. What's funny is the motherboard's completely straight. It's the camera that's crooked. But I think for all intents and purposes, I'll make it crooked on my side so you guys, it's easier to adjust the box than the camera. So I put the cover back over the CPU pins, which you should always do immediately upon removing a CPU from a motherboard, unless you're instantly putting another one back in there. If this board has to go back to RMA without this cover, that warranty is rejected permanently. Those pins are very delicate. Now the CPU, this is how it shipped. It was just in this little cardboard box. There was no outer box. There's no cooler, although K CPUs from Intel do not come with coolers. And if we hold that just right, maybe it'll focus. Maybe it won't. Huh. Might be able to read it. Anyway, that's our 12600K, and it doesn't look like anybody's used it. Like, I don't see any thermal material on it yet. Let me see. It's pretty clean. Pretty clean. All right, so we can take that out. You notice the two notches in the plastic. Just put your fingers on the sides. Don't touch the top or bottom. Try to avoid it. It's not the end of the world, but it's good practice not to touch the top or bottom. And then let me back this off just a little bit, see if that'll focus a little sharper. Let's open this lid. This pulls up backwards like a Corvette hood. Now, this was a brand new board, and I'm the only one who's ever used it, so I know my pins are in really good shape. I don't damage pins when I put in CPU. Yeah. Look at the glare I'm getting off the lights. Is it possible I have too many lights? Yeah, it won't matter. We're going over to Studio C soon enough, so I'm not going to spend too much time worrying about that. Now, generally, the CPU is going to go in with the writing facing all the other writing on the board. But you also have the notches that you can look for, which are at the top and bottom here. We have little tiny notches. And then, of course, you've got the arrow, which you have to match with the arrow on the cover, which I've opened. But it should be, if memory serves, it should be just kind of like this. I very gently set it in the socket and let it go, and it'll just fall right into place. Now, that is hovering just over those pins. And when I close this, well, I got to take this lid off first. We're going to move the lid. The lids used to pop off back in the day, but they don't do that anymore. Maybe they'll do that in the future, but for now, we hold on to this for the same reason. I have to send it back. That will need to be on there. Now, make sure that this little hook or bend in the wire pushes down on the metal, that's the tabs that are sticking out on this retention lid, and it's going to push that CPU down into the socket. And this does require a bit of force because that wire that I'm pushing down, this lever, can be quite resistive. So I am having an issue with dropped frames. If you're watching and you're wondering what's happening, we're having an upload error happening right now, but I am recording the stream locally. Looks like we're back. So it wasn't you, it was me. It looks like we had a bit of an upload issue during the live stream. Again, I record the live stream locally, so if you experience a little outage there, I'm not sure what happened, but that was on my side. Okay, we've got our CPU in. I really feel like I need to cut some of these lights. That is just, I'm not sure why tonight it's looking so bright, but yeah, I might need to cut. Oh, you know what? It's probably the camera. Never mind. It's a camera setting. So I don't want to do too much to customize and improve the lighting and sound when we're packing up and moving out. Now, with the CPU installed, the next thing we can put in, we could put our cooler in. This is the Intel Laminar cooler. This is a really neat cooler. And I was buying those off eBay for like 30 bucks a piece. And those are the stock coolers that come with 12900s 13900 and 14900 non-K processors. This is a monster of a cooler from Intel. Monster. And you do have to put this back plate on. And you see thermal compound is already pre-applied, so there's nothing we need to do other than put it on. And we'll clean the surface of this before we apply the heatsink. So what I'm thinking is we can put our NVMe in. We should save the RAM for last. So let's do the NVMe drive. We'll get that done real quick. Here again, I've got the Fanxiang S880, the PCI Gen 4. I think this is a Gen 4. I don't think 12th Gen Intel boards will work at Gen 5. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're going to put Gen 4 in regardless. Too many models now. They're all getting mixed up between Intel and AMD, and generations of USB and PCI Express, and video card numbers, and RAM types. Yeah, it's getting a little bit crowded. In my brain to store all that off the top of my head. You know who can do that? JJ from ASUS. He can pull stuff off the top of his head that I'd have to Google. He's like, oh yeah, just like it's nothing. All right, let's see what we got here. So, documentation, screwdriver. They even include a little M.2 screw, which is really neat, even though you really want to use what comes with your motherboard, but sometimes people lose them. So I will save the M.2 screws because those bad boys are a little hard to find. They can be difficult, especially when you need one. That's when they're hardest to find. Okay, let me grab my glasses, and we should put our main SSD right here. That's where I like to put it. There are other reasons. We've talked about that. Not getting into that today. We just want to get this done. So let me just grab my standard. Was that going to work? I need my JIS driver. That's what I need, and I know it's in here in my drawer. It's somewhere in here. Come on. Ah, it lost the hide and seek game. So we're going to pull the heatsink off. One screw there, one screw there. As you remove it, pay attention to the orientation, because you may not think about it if you're like me. When you take this off thoughtlessly, thinking about, you know, what you've got to do ahead, then when you go to put this back on, it might be like, wait a minute, did that go this way? Now, thankfully, ASUS has some writing on there, so that helps indicate, once again, all the writing is going to go that direction. I just accidentally touched this thermal tape. Again, it's not devastating if you do. It doesn't really harm anything terribly. It's just for the best thermal heat transfer, you want this as clean as possible. So any oils or dirt on your skin is going to get on that. And that might have a very minute effect on the temperature. Now we've got a quick release lever right here. This is really neat. What you do is you take your NVMe drive, right? And this is our 2 terabyte drive, right? These have a 5-year warranty. Yeah, it's anyway, we will place that in. It only goes in one way into the socket right here. Give that a wiggle and a push. And then as I bring this down, just move this lever around until this sits completely flat. And then you should just turn the lever. That locks it in, no screws. That is a neat, nifty idea. I wish they would have introduced that socket with that quick disconnect. But now that ASUS has done it, the good news is other manufacturers have copied them. So we'll let ASUS continue to innovate, and hopefully we'll see some more ideas like the quick disconnect for the video cards. Let's see. Sometimes this can be a little hard to align because there's nothing for it to seat into. So you just have to find where the hole is for the screw. And then don't tighten it all the way down. Go to the next one. Make sure that it's aligned. And then you can tighten them down. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to keep switching back and forth like you do with the CPU cooler. Couldn't hurt, but you don't have to. Yeah, see, I missed that one entirely. It can be hard to tell if you're putting the heatsink back on correctly, other than obviously the screws you'll feel them going in or not. And so as I was spinning that, I thought it was going in, but what was holding it down when I tried to lift it up was the thermal tape, which made me think that that was started. That's why that happened. Happened to you too. All right, let's move some of this stuff out of the way here. So that's going to be our storage drive. There's our CPU. Let's get our CPU cleaned up, and we'll put our cooler on top. So for that, I've got some 99% isopropyl alcohol. The stronger the alcohol, the better it will evaporate and leave behind nothing. When the isopropyl alcohol, when it's at a lower percentage, 70%, lower than 80%, that's really for medical use. And anything at 99% like this is for cleaning. You wouldn't use, even though it says ER on here, you would not use that for humans. That could actually, whatever you're trying to disinfect could make it worse. You would use something like this as an antiseptic, right? A first aid, sorry. That's only 70%. And that's fine. If this is all you have, that'll work. It's just this is a little bit better with regards to residue. And again, it probably doesn't make much of a measurable scientific difference in the thermal efficacy of the heat transfer, but we want to give it the best shot we can at performing well. So let's go ahead and get some of that on the Q-tip here, and then we're just going to scrubby. It doesn't have to be perfect, just better than it was. Okay? Don't obsess about it. It's not going to make that big of a difference. All right, so we'll let that evaporate. And let's see. We have this back plate to put on next. I want to make sure that's all evaporated. It's hard to tell with the camera lighting being the way it is, but make sure the alcohol's dried up. Don't wipe the alcohol up, just let it evaporate. So with regards to this cooler, you can see how it installs with these standoffs here. And this is how Intel ships it in the box with the 12900, 13900, 1400 non-K CPUs. This is easily a $60 cooler. So the fact that they're including it with the non-K CPU may explain the puzzling question of why is the non-K CPU more expensive than the K CPU? This is why. They're not throwing this in for free. So we want to take this back plate off of here. And it's already set up with some sticky tape to hold it in place so it won't fall as you're trying to secure the heatsink. So we're going to go ahead and stick that on the back. And this can go on one of two ways. Obviously, the parts that stick up right here, those are going to go through the board. And because it's rectangular, it only will fit one of two ways. It won't go in sideways. So what you want to do is turn the board over, and you'll see this rectangular shape, which is the back of the CPU socket, and this rectangular shape. So this can go on like so, or 180 degrees like that. Either way, it's fine. And that sticky tape is going to stick right to the surface there onto the back plate. And that way I don't have to have a third hand to hold this. I really like that. It's considerate and thoughtful. It does mean if you ever have to remove this, you likely will have to come up with your own solution the next time you want to put it on a different board since you've already used up the tape. But that's not rocket science to solve. Now we've got our cooler, and the cooler can go on like this or like that. Problem is, if we put it on this way, we got to route our cables all the way around, and that looks terrible. So let's put the cooler on where our cables are closest to where they're going to plug into the board, which is back here. Very difficult for you to see that because this heatsink is right over the connectors. So if we put this on here, the heatsink, just set that right on top of the CPU, just like that. You know, with some third-party coolers, you have to put brackets in, not with the Intel cooler. And you might say, but Carey, the Intel logo is upside down. Notice when I spin the fan, the Intel logo doesn't move. But watch this. Fixed. It is so cool. And we've got two wires here, one for powering the fan, and this is our RGB header, which allows us to control the RGB through the motherboard software, or through, you know, if you've got a fan controller or something with the RGB. So let's go ahead and secure this down, and we just need a regular Phillips screwdriver for that. And you just want to get these started a little bit here. Don't tighten them too much, just get them started. Go to opposite corners. This is important because we want this completely flat. Remember, we're working with a return CPU and a motherboard that I might have damaged. It's worth it. All right, so where was I? Here, go over here, come over here, here, back over to here, over to here. And over to here. That one stopped. We'll come over here. That one stopped. Don't turn them past stopping. They will just come to a dead stop. And that one stopped. And then if you want to go around one more time just to make sure that nothing on any of the corners loosened up, just give it one more check. And there it is. Now, with regards to power, what we're going to do is right up here, we've got the power connectors for the fan and a spare fan, an optional. You'll notice how the one connector is a different color. I hope the camera picked that up very well. But the this connector right here is a different color. So I can tell you without even reading it, that's going to be our main CPU fan header. And it usually says right here on the board, right next to it, it says CPU fan up here, and it says CPU optional next to it, the black one. And you can always refer to your manual, you know, if that's the kind of person you are. Now, let's go this, we can route these cables cleverly where we won't see them. You can see we're going to get real close to our RAM here. So let's do this after our RAM installed. Now, the RAM's going to go into the gray sockets, right? So we're not going to, we'll be okay. It's just that if we add RAM later, we might want to route these wires this way over the heatsink. But for now, just to hook it up, we're just testing the board. This is our CPU fan header that's going to go on one direction only. It's got a groove that it fits into, so it's what we call keyed. And the same with the ARGB plug. The ARGB plug has a missing pin, so it only goes on one way. There's no clip or anything. And these are ARGB headers right up here, so we can just use those because they're close. Now, if we don't have this on our motherboard, that's what this little button's for. You can change the color and pattern of the RGB with this button, but that would mean you'd have to open your computer up to do that. When we plug it in, we can control the RGB through the motherboard software. And that also allows us to synchronize all the RGB so that they're all the same color together or moving in a certain flow, rather than just one doing its own thing and another doing its own thing. You just have RGB chaos. Some people like RGB chaos. Don't they? Certain people. All right, let's toss some RAM in here real quick, and then we'll hook up the power supply, see if this thing will boot. Probably a BIOS update for this, I bet, too. So we got some pretty good looking RAM here. Red and black always go together. Besides, it's what I had on the shelf, so that's what we're going to use anyway. Now, again, we are mainly doing this to test it may not stay with these parts. In fact, if the board is bad, it's not going to stay with any of the parts. So I'm not too worried about color matching or aesthetics. I really just want to determine if the board is okay, or if I need to send it back. As I mentioned, it's got at least a 2-year warranty. So I don't have any customers waiting. This would be the time to do it. And that is in backwards. Normally, the sticker faces the CPU. Just in case that you're like, how do I know which way it lines up? If you want to get it right the first time, on most motherboards, that information sticker goes this way. Okay, let's put the other module in. Somehow. Again, it's not a written rule, but a lot of times the information sticker that tells you all about the RAM will face the CPU. So that would go in. Soften them. We're going to go into the other gray slot right here. Slide it into the track. Make sure it's seated in there nice. You're not forcing anything. Then you can force it. One corner, other corner. And these little retention levers will close back up on their own. Yeah, they're all good. Now we can hook up power. And I also need a power switch. Now I buy these power switches from Amazon. They're like 10 bucks. And it's better than, you know, ghetto style shorting out pins with a screwdriver. That's all well and good if it's your cousin working on your computer, but as a professional, customers deserve better. All right, so on these pins here, we don't have to hook up the RGB light on, not RGB. We don't have to hook up the LED, but we do want to hook up the power switch. And written in really tiny fine print, it tells you what all these pins are. But overall, it's always going to be these 2 pins on the top row. We're always going to connect these pins this way, never connecting a top and bottom row together. They always go horizontally. And that should be the power switch. Even that writing is so small, I can't read it. Although at my age now, I'm not even sure what room I'm in. I'm going blind is what I'm trying to tell you. Who said that? Now, if we want to hook up the RGB, that's no big deal. I was just trying to speed this along, but you know, sometimes the OCD gets the best of me. And so the RGB is going to go on that top row with the negative pin right up against the power switch, the positive pin right up against the last connector on this. This whole thing is one connector. This is on the very last row of pins. Also the top row, if you're looking at the board in the direction that I am, it's the top row. And it's the very first pin or last pin of the top row, depending on what your perspective of that is. With a power switch now, we can give it power. I haven't used this power supply in a very long time, but it's EVGA. It should be a great power supply. I don't expect that it gives a darn that it's been sitting on a floor for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or however long it's been. And we just need the 2 connectors, the CPU power, sorry, the motherboard power and the CPU power, which is right here. Now you notice we have 2 connectors for CPU power. We only need the big one. The secondary one is for extra voltage when overclocking, which I am not going to do, but can be done on the 12600K. Or you could just buy a faster processor and save yourself all the headaches and expensive cooling. But hey, you do you. It would help if I could see it though. I can't see so good. Gotta get my glasses and my shoes. Anybody remember the Jerky Boys? Okay. Right, it's all right. It's okay, it's all right. Now, we're gonna get a keyboard and mouse in here. Look at that mess. Keyboard and mouse. And we'll rotate this way because I've got to plug HDMI and such. I've got my keyboard and my mouse. Look how worn that mouse looks. It's got a nice life of service it's had. And hopefully many more years ahead of it. All right, let me jump over here and plug in any of the USB ports. It doesn't matter. Usually if there's black USB ports, I'll use those, but that's because this is such a, your keyboard and mouse don't require a high-speed USB, but it looks like this board only has high-speed USB. We don't want to plug any internet into it just yet. We got great connectors here, a couple of Type-Cs. In fact, you guys can't see them. Let me switch back to camera 1 anyway. I think we're done with the overhead at this. No, you know what? You know how an HDMI cable plugs in. We'll cover that later because I want you to see the RGB on this from the top. All right? I mean, I know the RGB will come on. I just don't know that the board's going to post consistently and be trouble-free. This is how we find out. You know, we can assume and we can theorize all day, but that's not getting anything actually done in reality. So I would rather spend my time checking results than thinking about possible results. I think, you know, it's okay to spend a little bit of time thinking about possible results, but don't get caught up on all the possibilities. Just do it. Just do it and see what happens. Now you can see RGB is already fired up here. Let's see. Since this camera is turning everything so bright, let's shut the studio lights out. So the RGB lighting that's coming from the bottom of the board looks like it's lighting up the RAM, but that's a reflection of the lighting down here. Now, when I turn this board on, you'll see our Intel RGB cooler, the Intel logo does not spin, but the fan it's on does. How wicked is that? Yeah, this camera's got some really bright exposure settings on it. Now, is it booting? That's the question. That's my power button. See, I hooked up the LED. Let's go to our HDMI input. It looks like it wants to boot. Press enter. Please enter setup to recover BIOS settings. All right, what do we do? Hit delete. Press F1, it says. F1. All right, F1 it is. And we wait. There it is. Now, let's check what BIOS version we have, because this board has been sitting a while. And again, it was inconsistent with its post. So we're off to a good start. Hopefully it stays this way. Now, what I see here is the 2802 BIOS version 2802. There's our i5-12600k. That was a returned part from Amazon, so it was discounted. Golden Empire RAM. Oh, I guess that's how GeIL, G-E and GeIL must stand for. I didn't know that. Anyway, I digress. Let's go to, 32 gigs of RAM right now, running at 4,500 megahertz. Good enough. Now, is there a new BIOS version? So let me go over to the streamer and I'll type in ASUS Z690-PLUS Wi-Fi BIOS. And the first link Google presents us should take us to ASUS. And it does. And again, if we go to the screen capture, window capture mode, I can share the screen with you here. Just like this. And then there's BIOS and firmware for the Tough Gaming Z690-PLUS Wi-Fi. It says the latest version is 3.701. That's much newer. It was released about 3 weeks ago. Let's grab it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to extract that file onto a flash drive. So let's come back over here. We're going to switch back over to camera 1, which is going to be dark. That's what everything looks like in the dark. A mad scientist. It's alive! Alive! All right. Do I have any more dated references I can give? Let's grab a small flash drive here in my pens and flash drives and other tools that are really important that I just slam all in there. This modern tech just takes so much abuse. It's amazing to me how robust modern tech is. If I'm honest, much of this stuff should not work the way I treat it. Thankfully, it's all very inexpensive, but regardless, it's pretty rare that I ever run into a bad flash drive. It happens, but. Okay, let me get the flash drive plugged in on the streamer, and then we can get that file copied over. So I'm going to go to my downloads folder, and then I'm going to click on the zip file, the Tough Gaming Z690 zip file, and we're going to extract its contents. We'll hit the extract all button, and then it's going to show us the contents, and it shows two files. One's called biosrenamer.exe. You don't need that unless you're doing something called a QFlash. That's where you can flash the BIOS on some motherboards that have that option without a CPU or RAM installed, and that's for if your BIOS is not recognizing your CPU because your CPU came out yesterday and your motherboard came out last year. So your motherboard has no idea unless it gets a BIOS update. But how do you get a BIOS update for your CPU if it won't see your CPU? Well, that's what it's often called QFlash. I forget what ASUS, maybe ASUS calls it QFlash. We don't need to rename the BIOS unless we're doing that. So we're going to do a BIOS the same way that we always do it, which is that we copy the biggest file in that zip file. We copy the biggest one onto our flash drive. And even that biggest file is a relatively small file, so you don't want to use a big flash drive. You don't have to use a fast flash drive. It's so small, it really doesn't make a difference one way or the other. Your BIOS update will still take the same amount of time. And if you use a real big fancy flash drive, it may not even be recognized by the BIOS without an operating system. So don't think, going all big and fast and, using the latest and greatest is always a good idea. It depends on the platform. So now I've got the flash drive with the BIOS file on it. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in here. And I was just going to talk about all the ports that are on this bad boy. This thing is got a lot of ports on it. It's already got the IO shield built on. We can use any of these USB ports. Just plug that in and give it a minute to initialize. We're going to go back to this screen, the BIOS screen here, which should be right about here. And then we don't have to reboot or anything as long as we give it a minute to recognize the flash drive, which it should have done by now. We go to, I'm looking on the screen here, looks like we're going to go to advanced mode down here, which is F7. And we're going to go to tool. What'd you call me? Easy Flash Utility is what we want. Just click on that. It automatically sees the file because the brand new NVMe drive has no partition or format. So this is the only place it can look, and that's the only file on the flash drive. I do that so I don't accidentally hit the wrong file, although the board should prevent you from putting the wrong flash on. I always use a blank flash drive with just the BIOS file on it. It's just cleaner. So yes, I want to read this file. And now, as we do this in real time unscripted, it's asking if we really want to update the BIOS. We're going from version 2802 to 3701. I say yes. And now we just leave it alone and let it do its thing. Welcome in, everybody in the chat. Good to see all my friends here. Peter contributes $2.56. He's been a member now over 12 months. Thank you, Peter. I think he joins us from Amsterdam. Mandeep Jasal says, hey, Carey, it's me, Temp from Australia. You may have remembered me. I'm finally up to date with today's tech. Thanks. Right on. Well, good to see you, Mandeep, and thank you for being a member. Who else we got in here? More Taunts joining us. Mark Baggett, Jason H88. Of course, Marlena's in there. There's Mark Gaines and Barry Klein. And let's see. Did I say Mark Baggett and Joe Martin and Jason H88? Right on. Jason H88 says he likes watching CTV, Carey television. I want my CTV. Nobody wants that. All right. Daryl Loftus says hello. Welcome in. Jason H88 renews membership. Now a member for 26 months. You guys rock. He says, I am so glad you had an extra live stream tonight. Listen, I'm just trying to get caught up. All this stuff has to go to Studio C. All right. And that means I have to move the RAM, and I have to move the motherboard, and I have to move the power supply. I have a chance right now to put all this in a case, do a build with it, and then just move the computer. But I got to make sure all of this works. And that's why there's kind of this finish line I'm racing towards. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it. But I'm still a little nervous. So there may be a couple of days where we're doing 2 shows in order to just get caught up, including weekends or late nights, whatever it takes, man. I'm working harder one way or the other. I'm either working harder by having to separate all these parts and carefully bring them over there without damage and organize them where I can find them, or I'm working harder that I assemble all these parts together so that there's only one part for me to move, which makes the move part easier. So the question is, do I want to work now or do I want to work later? And I'm trying to even out the work on both ends, right? A little bit now, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. And so we'll get through it one by one until they're done. We still have at least 4 or 5 more to go. Joe Martin says he likes the ASUS Tough motherboards, always have good luck with them. Jeb says, good evening. Welcome in, Jeb, as does James Carter and Dean Sermersheim. El Perez says hello. I'll tell you what, Mara, I'm feeling a little generous. If you'd like to open the chat room publicly, we can do that. But if people are misbehaving, ban them. And let's see if we have to ban a bunch of people, then we'll just go right back to members only on the chat. So let's put our toe in the water for tonight, since this is an extra show. And let's see what happens. The chat's a little bit slow tonight, and I expected it to be because, quite frankly, it's quite late. So we may have other viewers that would like to join us in the chat that are not members, and interacting with me is normally a members only benefit. However, since we did that earlier today, we might see firsthand why chat is limited to the general public, or we'll have civilized, kind, and considerate people with courtesy. Which will it be? So if it turns out to be, so right now the system's rebooting, by the way. If it turns out to be chaos, we'll shut it back down and keep it to just members only. And just in case other people think that's not fair, you might see firsthand why we're doing that. So you can prove me right or prove me wrong. It's up to the people who join us. BIOS is updating LED firmware. Do not shut down or reset the system to prevent system boot up failure. This is why you keep hands off. Don't interrupt the BIOS update. You might have thought it was done before, but it wasn't done yet. It's still updating. So it will reboot. It could reboot 3 or 4 times depending on the manufacturer and the BIOS version, and that's perfectly normal. There's nothing to fix. Leave it alone. When it's done, it will either boot into your Windows OS if you have one, or in our case, since it has nothing to boot to, it'll take us back into the BIOS, or in some motherboards, it may just give you an error that there's no bootable device found. Now look, the BIOS is updating something else after a second restart. ME firmware, the management engine, is updating. Do not shut down or reset the system to prevent boot up failure. Boot up failure is a kind way of saying you're going to make this motherboard useless. If you interrupt a BIOS update, if you do not allow it to complete, you will end up with a motherboard that does nothing. It's what we call bricking the motherboard. And if it bricks it, well, you're done. So that's where you have to send it in for warranty. There's nothing technical support can help you with generally when that happens. It just, you have to box it up, mail it in. It'll take a week to get there. They'll send you a replacement board or fix your board, and it'll take a week to get back. So for 2 weeks, you're down because you couldn't wait 10 minutes, but now you're going to wait 2 weeks minimum. Haste makes waste. If you do this and you tell the motherboard that you want it to update, get out of its way. If you can't do that, do not update your BIOS. All right, so right now the system is, it's like posting for the first time now with the new BIOS. That's why that's taking so long. And now you're going to see that it's done. We get an error message here that says press 5 to load factory defaults. So we'll hit F5. If I turn my keyboard on. 5. Oh, now please press F1 to enter BIOS setup. Okay, so we got the BIOS here. We can check our BIOS version 3701. That looks good. The system's been booting normally. It has not been just going to a black screen like it used to do while it was setting aside. And on top of that, we can load the BIOS defaults right here. F5 is your BIOS defaults. So you can hit F5 or click it just in case the BIOS update has, I've seen it where it makes some changes, like it's almost like corruption of the data. If you recall, a few years ago, we were testing, and after a BIOS update, the NVMe speed dropped like a rock. And I couldn't figure out, why is the NVMe drive going so slow? And then I thought, let me just go in the BIOS and reset the defaults after the BIOS update that I had just done, saved and exit, and then all of a sudden the NVMe was back to its normal speed again. So something in the BIOS update changed, probably not on purpose, a setting that affected the speed of that NVMe drive. Now, that's only happened once, and it was a couple of years ago, but I got PTSD from it. So anyway, that's our latest BIOS. And now, if I go back to camera 1, you can witness me installing Windows 11 right here. I got to paint my lips chrome. Sorry, that's a Mad Max reference. Let's get rid of this. I'm going to erase the flash file, a BIOS file on that later, so it'll be blank. It'll go back in the drawer. Remember I said it's amazing how I treat these, how well they work? These are really, really robust. I can throw it around, not catch it, it don't matter. It's pretty rock solid. I'm not saying it's indestructible. I'm just saying you don't have to treat it like it's a Fabergé egg. There's a reference. What language does this guy talk? All right, so with our bootable, not beautiful, with our bootable Windows 11 flash drive, which we created legally for free, downloading the files directly from Microsoft using the Windows creation tool, free utility from Microsoft. You got to pay for the license, but you can install the operating system and it'll run as a trial indefinitely. And what we want to do right now is just install the operating system. So to do that, this computer is configured, the BIOS, I should say, to boot to the storage drive first. And if it can't boot to the storage drive, it'll look to other bootable devices. So we do not go into the BIOS and play with the date and time. We don't go into the BIOS and change the boot order on a brand new board or on a board where we're running default BIOS settings. You're doing work you don't need to do that will come back to haunt you and make your job more complicated than it needs to be. The system will automatically say, hey, look, whatever this NVMe drive is, I can't read it. And of course it can't read it. We haven't formatted it, but it doesn't know. It could have Linux or some other language on it it doesn't speak. So it can't talk to it. So it says, okay, I can't talk to that. What else can I talk to? But it does try that first. Then if that's bootable, it'll automatically boot to that. And when that installs on that, that becomes bootable. So on the next boot, it wants to boot to that first, and now it can. Then we don't need that flash drive anymore. It copied everything it needed. And the Windows 11 install will complete with or without. You can leave it in if you want, the flash drive. So let's go back over to, oh, you know what? Let's put the camera in the corner so you can see what I'm doing at the same time. All right, so I'm going to put myself right over here. And just for fun, we'll make it dark enough. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, well, first of all, we got to make this look pretty. Get those viewer numbers up. People go, oh, shiny, clicky, click. Something like that. Something like that. I don't know. Maybe I need to do a top down. Let's restart. Here's my close-up camera. That up here. Wow, that's hanging off the edge. Now I'm going to really make things crazy. Let's put that over here. And let's save and exit the BIOS. So that's usually F10 and OK. I've just got this all memorized. I can't see it any better than you can. Guess I don't need the window that big though. I can shrink that down and move it over this way. Can move me over. Let's see. What I'm waiting for is for this to post. Like before, sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. So I'm always holding my breath at this point, being patient to see that that's going to give us the BIOS screen. And it should have happened by now. Oh, okay. Patience, patience, patience. There it goes. Now it's going to automatically boot to this flash drive right over here. And there's our setup screen. Now you guys have seen me do this so many times. I don't think it matters that I'm covering it up a little bit. I want to do this differently tonight. This is sort of a bonus broadcast, if you will. So we're going to play it fast and loose here and keep the formality to a minimum. I click, I don't have a product key. I can't even read it. I've done this so many times. I know exactly where everything is. It's kind of sad. However, on this one, I'm not going to lie. I can't read that. So I'm going to go full screen over here on my side. There it is, second from the bottom, right there. Hit next. It should see our, oh, sorry. We got to agree to the license agreement first. And then we always choose custom install. Then it sees our S880. That's our 2 terabyte, which kind of works out to about 1900 gigs. It depends on how you do the math. If a K is 1000 or is a K 1024. So depending on how Microsoft calculates, that's where you see those discrepancies. You're not losing any space. It's just how they're defining the space. Anyway, we're going to just click next on that. And now it's going to partition automatically the drive. It's going to format those partitions. We should see 4 partitions when it's done. And it's going to copy over right now all the installation files so that when it reboots, it can finish the install without needing the flash drive anymore. You can keep the flash drive in. You don't have to take it out. Mara says she loves the Laminar cooler from Intel. Yeah, it's pretty neat, pretty nifty. Neato mosquito. Boy, that RGB is just coming through super bright. I got to get a different camera in here. What are you going to do? I'll probably get the perfect setup and then I got to move out. Murphy's Law. So I'm going to leave it be. And we're going to reboot here. It's automatically, there's a green bar moving across. It says, hey, when I reach the other side, I'm restarting. And you can click the restart now if you don't want to wait. But you can be in another room doing something else. You don't have to sit here staring at it. We can bring these lights up a little bit. What if I try this? Let's try a little bit more. Bring it down. Light some candles. Put on some. Can't think of the guy's name. Some Tom Jones or some Marvin Gaye. Play a little Dungeons and Dragons with a little Battlestar Galactica in the background. Oof. What am I doing here? Bag of Doritos by my side. Perfect night. You know, while this is waiting, you know what I think I'm going to do? This is really bugging me. There's some setting on this camera that I need to change. Not sure how I'm going to do that. You know what? I'm gonna unplug this camera for a second, guys. This is really bothering me. This is an expensive camera, and the problem is the operator doesn't know how to use it. I've got so many different cameras, and they have so many different settings. And then once I lock them in, I rarely need to adjust them. And so it's very difficult to remember, for me anyway, where certain settings are depending on the model of camera. So right now we're running all Sony cameras, but they're different models. So they don't all have the same menuing system or the same functionality. So what I'm looking at here is I want to adjust. Yeah, I can see the adjustment here is, it should be on auto. So exposure compensation is on 0. And if I turn the exposure compensation down, it certainly fades out. The lights aren't so bright, but there should be an auto setting on here that I'm missing. Let's change the mode. That's programmed auto intelligent. Let's try intelligent auto. Huh. Can you imagine an intelligent auto? Yeah, that is not working well. It's really struggling with the light. But let's leave it on intelligent auto for right now, and we'll see what it does. If that's any better. Like I said, any improvements I'm making at this point is a little late. I'm going to be out of here in a couple of weeks, so we want to make sure that I don't want to spend too much time on something that's temporary. Start a YouTube channel, they said. It'll be fun, they said. It's really easy, they said. Where are they now? Sorry, busy. Let's see if that works any better. So washed out. Let's go this way. Come on. Plug it. Should it go this way? Is it going? Oh, I see. I gotta move. Ah, come on. This is why people have a cameraman. Where you at, cameraman? All right. Let's finish our setup over here. We're just about done. So I'm in the United States. Yes. United States again. Yes. Second keyboard layout. No. Local network. I do not have internet. But I said I don't have internet. Ugh. Windows won't take no for an answer. And then we'll just put in the name user. I mean, it says to enter your name. So really, if I do exactly what it tells me to do, then I will enter your name. That's what it said. So if it already wanted me to do that, why didn't it do it for me? Sorry. We'll just put user. Enter, leave the password blank. And then, you know, I turn all this off, but location. Location will set the date and time for us automatically and keep it up to date at all times. And if we want to do like a Google search for a Taco Bell near me, because I feel like, you know, I'd like a little intestinal distress. You never know. Sometimes you get in the mood for that. And you don't have to tell it where you are. Location settings will be used to automatically get an idea, not a precise location, and throw some ideas at where it thinks you know, you might see 3 or 4 Taco Bells and you have to pick the one that's closest. The location settings aren't that specific, but they get you in the zip code. Nicolini says it's the ISO setting. Yeah, it probably is because I'm playing with all the lighting in here, right? So the ISO mode on the camera, when it's set to auto, should auto adjust as I'm messing around with the lights. Unfortunately, when we had this dialed in, I think I had it dialed in like you're talking about, you know, setting all of these settings, white balance, ISO, exposure. And then when I play with the lighting, everything goes cattywampus. It looks terrible. So I figured just let's put it to auto and it looks a lot better and just leave it on auto. We can dial it in better manually, but auto is better when we're constantly making lighting and exposure changes. Remember, the camera sees this as a flashlight. These LEDs, they're shining up into the camera and it's creating a false illusion of brightness. And the camera, oftentimes in auto mode, auto compensates and reduces the exposure because it says, wow, there's a lot of light in here, when really the light isn't that bright at all. Cameras are getting better, and with AI, the camera will be able to figure out that's not a flashlight and that's not bright. But right now, this is just like shining a flashlight into the camera. And when you do that, the camera's going to get darker. So if I get a flashlight out, the camera can't tell, and I don't want to ruin my camera, but as I raise the brightness, the camera's going to darken the image because it thinks, wow, this image is getting too bright. But in this case, the lighting isn't coming from around the camera. The lighting's coming right in front. And when you take a picture of somebody where the light is in front of them, that's where you get that silhouette image where you can only see their outline or their shadow, if you will, because the lighting, well, let's say the light is directly behind them. So the person's standing in front of the light, and that light could be the sun, and the sun is setting. And you're trying to take a picture of somebody standing in front of the sunset, you need to use the flash. It looks great in person, but when you take a picture without the flash, all you're going to see is a sunset and the silhouette of a person. Unless that was the shot you were going for. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? All right, so let's go ahead and pull the flash drive. We're done with this. This goes here. This is the one we used for the BIOS update. We need to erase that later, so I'll just put it over here in my to-do list. And then we need to go to Windows Update and download our updates and drivers. So now that we've done all that, we still haven't activated it yet. We will plug in the internet. And of course, we'll do the part that takes forever, which is to get all of our Windows updates and drivers. So the ASUS BIOS is asking us, hey, do you want to install the drivers automatically? And you can do that if you want to. Let me go full screen over here so I can read it. It should only ask you this once. You want to download and install the Armory Crate. And the Armory Crate is a service that'll help you manage and download the latest software updates. I'm going to say no on this. Oh, I'm using the wrong mouse. I'm going to say no. Let's go over here, click no. And let's let Windows Update do what it's going to do, and we'll see what's in the device manager left over. So the first thing I like to do is turn this automatic update on and go to advanced options and make sure that updating other Microsoft products is on. Keep me up to date. I don't want it to reboot without my permission, but just notify me if it's downloading an update in the background that needs a restart. I don't want it to interrupt my work. It'll pop up a window and it'll say, you know, hey, are you ready to restart? And so those are the way I like my settings. So with that, let's go back over here and let's check for updates. And let that complete, and we'll see what we have for drivers when we're done. In the meantime, while we're waiting, because this is going to take a few minutes, I can bring the lights back up to normal. You guys got an idea of the RGB. And, you know, my personal rigs don't have any RGB. You guys know that. This is not a rig I use personally. This is just a streaming rig. My personal rigs, I built them here on camera, and they're usually blackout builds. No glass panel, metal on both sides. Corsair 200R is what I have at Studio A as an office PC. Here, I never set up an office PC because this was always meant to be temporary. So I've been operating off of a Samsung Galaxy Book 3, and I just put an external monitor on it so I can see it better. And then that monitor has USB Type-C power delivery. So that monitor powers the laptop. It keeps the battery charged. And is the video cable laptop. So it's one cable. I think I've plugged the laptop into its charger once, and I never use it on battery because I keep the lid closed. I put a keyboard just like this on top of it. I have a Bluetooth Logitech mouse, and that thing is screaming fast. Now, Mara, on the other hand, she's got the helicopter, both the big one and the little one. And if she's got an RGB keyboard, an RGB mouse, an RGB mouse pad, yeah, we might need an RGB intervention. So don't confuse me with her. That's all I'm saying. All right, now let's take a look in the chat, see what you guys are talking about. Mara says, I'm such a sucker for fun RGB. Yes, yes, we've established that. I think my chat room is behind. Let me read. Yeah, that's better. C Panda says, I was hit by a car and broke my back in 5 places. Holy cow. Holy cow. Frankie B, thank you for your generous contribution. We appreciate you so much. He says, it's good to see you again. I can't stay. Bedtime, it's work tomorrow night. Hey, thank you so much, Frankie. We'll see you. This video will be available for you to watch at your convenience. And videos like this are made possible because of our members like Frankie B. Because of all of our members and those super chats, that's what's keeping us running. So once again, we're having some connection issues. I do record these streams live, so everything you see on the screen, or you might not be seeing at this point, is recorded locally on the streamers. So this video may be one I need to re-upload, because if you guys are getting buffering that's happening, there does seem to be an upload issue. You know what? I don't care, because we're out of this studio anyway. So it's always work to keep this thing up and running. And so now I can kind of just not stress out over it, because it doesn't matter if I fix it. We're leaving anyway. So let it be. It'll be somebody else's problem soon enough. All right, let's see. Rare Apple says, I think you're dropping. Yes, it was disconnecting from the ingest server at YouTube. I don't know why. I'm not losing my internet here. So before I had a problem with my internet dropping. Now I've solved that. Now I have a problem with YouTube's ingest server, which I have no control over. Just coincidentally, it decided that life was too good for me and I need to struggle more. And you know what? I don't need to deal with that anymore. I don't have to tolerate that. Once we're in state, go away. Much better internet connection there. And I mean, I can't help what YouTube ingest servers do. You know, they could be doing this regardless of my connection. And all streams are recorded locally. So we can upload this file that does not get interrupted, that we're recording like, and it's doing it again. All right, so for people that on the stream watching the upload of the local record, we're getting a basically like an upload pause. And so the upload pause, like occurring, it may be because we're downloading updates on the same connection. I changed this to the faster connection. This could be a problem. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Well, we're going to deal with it. We're going to keep moving. And hopefully it'll sort itself out. We're going to just fight through it. We'll keep marching forward. I apologize for the people watching a little bit longer. The computer went to sleep on me because I didn't adjust the power. Let me quickly edit the power settings so that doesn't happen again. Yeah, well, that'll be a problem. And we'll bring that down to, say, 3 hours. And then the other thing, you know, I don't like that little cartoon in my search bar. Oh, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Yeah, let's get rid of that. So we'll type in search permission. Yeah, there. That's what I want. Scroll all the way down to this last one, more settings. I turn that off. That icon goes away forever, or at least until some future update turns that back on. Because, you know, Microsoft will think, you didn't do that on purpose. Okay. Hopefully, this will not continue to torture us much longer. In fact, you know what? I mean, it seems like it's paused here. What's going on? That says it's at 10%. This says it's installing. I don't want to interrupt it. As long as it's doing something. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Mark Gaines says, I missed a few super chats. Oh, thanks, Mark. It's a good time for me to get caught up while we're waiting. Unfortunately, my connection is still terrible. This is very strange. So for that reason, I'm going to, let's go to right click on this. I think we're going to reboot here because this is not acceptable. I'm kind of curious if I restart, if that solves our connection. Is it because I'm using too much bandwidth? I don't know. Is it the YouTube ingest server? Should I pick a different server? I should have plenty of bandwidth. This is a really, really bad connection. What should I do? It normally doesn't go on this long. Well, I'm patiently waiting to see if it recovers. There, it just recovered. We're back live again. It was really struggling there, and I don't know why. But we've gone ahead and restarted during the Windows updates because I was afraid maybe those Windows updates were sucking up all my bandwidth. But now I've got a solid green connection back over to YouTube again. So I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm hoping it'll stay that way. We're going to find out here when I start updates again to see if this problem reoccurs. So hold on to your seats because we're about to push the limit, see what happens, see if we can break it. Back to Windows Update. Should automatically start downloading and installing where it left off. Still doing something down here where it wants to update. That usually indicates the previous updates are still installing in the background. Nothing's happening here, so let's hit install. And yeah, it's working on something right here. But we're still okay on our connection. So we haven't lost our connection yet. Let's restart again. All right. That's the message I wanted to pop up. When updates are installing in the background, like at any point in the future, and I have no idea, first of all, I don't want to skip the updates. I want them as soon as they're available. but I'm not going to check every day or every second Tuesday. I got other things to do. So that will remind me, hey, an update installed in the background, but you need to restart. But you don't have to restart right this second. Just know that you have an update that won't finish until you restart the computer. So when you're done or when you want to take a break, think about saving whatever you're working on and let that update finish by restarting. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to go and manually check Windows Update if you don't want to. Anything that's important, you're going to get automatically and you will be told. So that's why I put those settings that way. My personal preference. I set all my customers up the same way. Sometimes customers never turn their computers off or restart them. And then they have problems because of that. So that kind of forces the restart and clears all the memory out. So we'll let that continue on. And now we're downloading again. And it should have no effect on our upload speed. So I don't know what was going on. When we go live, we always record to the local streamer for just this reason. So everything that I said that you didn't see or hear was recorded normally. And we can take that recording and we can upload that as a recorded video. And you can see all the pieces where it buffered out, where I'm still talking or showing something. And this thing is recording it just as though I was making a video. You know, a normal video where it's not live. So hopefully whatever happened was on YouTube side and they fixed it. No, they said that. Away it went. That is crazy. We've never seen it this bad before. Huh. Weird. It's trying. I see that the numbers are climbing. Not quite up to a good broadcast speed yet. So it's like it's connecting, it's just not getting a good connection. Very strange. Okay, it just went into the green now, reestablished the connection. It's very inconsistent. Now it's got a super great connection. Now it went from like, you know, it's like cell phone reception. You know, you're walking around, it's got 5 bars, and then you look down, it's got 1 bar, and then it goes into the red and you got no connection. Then you walk 2 feet and you're back up to 5 bars. The only difference is we're not doing anything on our end for this to occur. We're not moving anything. We're not adjusting any settings. This is happening on its own. That's why I think it's YouTube, but I'm not positive. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with us downloading over here. That seems irrelevant, as it should. So I missed some super chats. Let's get back over to that. Jason H88 with a $10 super chat said, I was in the process of watching the replay of the earlier live stream when I got a notification for this one. Your latest networking video was very informative. I think I have some bad cables. Man, bad cables are the worst. The good news is cables are cheap, so it's really easy to swap them out and see if that solves the problem. Mark Gaines with a £5 contribution says, good morning, Carey. I'm eating toast and marmalade, watching you work your magic. Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out with us this morning. This morning for you, I should say. There's Peter with we mentioned the €2.56 contribution. Thank you, Peter, as always. And thank you to all the members for supporting the channel here. Let me go back over to my OBS settings. Yeah, we're still broadcasting. Okay. Well, we're waiting. If anybody has any questions for me in the chat, this will be a good time to ask as we're waiting for these updates. Then we'll check the device manager. because likely there'll be some devices that even Windows Update doesn't provide the drivers for. And then I'll show you how we go and get those for the 6th time. No, I've showed this numerous times, but we'll show it again. Not everybody watches every part of every video. I understand that. So you're going to see a lot of repeating if you do watch every part of every video, and that's why. Do I want to check my phone? Where's my glasses? Needed my glasses. Hey, that's me. I got a notification that I'm live. Is this now? This is now. It's now? Well, that was now. I got her. I forgot why I picked up the phone. I was going to check. Mortant sent an Amazon gift card of $50. Thank you, Mortant. Again, a super thanks out to Frankie B and to all the members. You guys rock. It's 11:53 in Uptown Marlboro, Maryland, says Mortant. Yeah, you're 3 hours ahead of us. All right, let me just turn these cameras off for a second. I want to see what's going on over here. Are there any advanced options? Let's see, updates 2, 3. Let's grab those. They hid them really well, didn't they? Firmware, what does that do? I don't know. Let's find out. Anybody know a tech? So this is with my faster connection. Imagine how much slower this could be. All right, well, let's move this to the left. Like so. And then I'll put camera 1 up in the corner and go back to any comments or questions in the chat room while we're waiting. This doesn't do me much good if I'm covering up the most important part, does it? Good. Then let's bring the there's update screen so we can see what's going on. Okay, so with that, hey, don't do that. Just when I got it right, you know? What are you gonna? Maybe that'll work. I mean, I could go a little bit up here, up in the corner. Drag this. See, I could spend all day just, this is why you need a director and a producer, so the talent on camera doesn't have to interrupt the show. That's how it works, but everybody needs to get paid, so we're gonna continue being a one-man band. I got cymbals between my knees. I got an accordion and a harmonica. I've got a tambourine attached to my leg. I'm a whole band. I'm a 5-piece band on one person. Darnell says, ooh, shiny RAM. Works every time. It's the bait. That's how you draw them in. You hook them with your lure. So what you got to do is it's like fishing, only it's spelled with a PH instead of an F. And what you do is you throw your line out with a little bit of shiny RAM. When they bite it, that's when they get the worm. Any type of question on PC? Yeah, ask away. This is an informal show. It's not a typical classroom that I like to run. This is more of a, hey, you want to hang out? It's cool. Here's what I'm doing tonight. I'm turning the camera on. If you want to hang out with me, hang out with me. If you have questions, like I said, it's not a formal class like I normally run. This is more of an after hours, just friends hanging out. So ask away. I'll do my best to provide an answer, or I'm sure someone in our chat room can answer you as well. We have a very, very well-educated, regular folks in our chat room that very likely know your answer to your question better than I do. So don't just listen for me to answer your question. Watch that chat room. Seriously. These guys are good. I know, because I trained a lot of them. And they've trained me too. And so we continue. Nerdrick says, I read Web3 establishes a universal state layer in the back end of the internet. I don't know the details of what you're talking about with regards to internet communications. Mara might be better equipped to handle that, or someone else in the chat room. That stuff I don't really get calls in my business for somebody saying, hi, Carey, I need you to come over here. My Web3 isn't working. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen. But I understand that's the next iteration. We did the Web 2.0 thing, and now we're calling this Web 3. I don't know much about it. It's not like when they switched from, they got rid of Flash and they got rid of Java and they replaced it with basically code in the browser. And they were calling that Web 2.0, along with being able to move things around the screen on the browser. But there's a bunch of stuff. But it didn't have any impact on anybody calling with problems. It added more functionality. I imagine more of the same with Web 3. I don't think most people are going to know any different. They didn't know they were using Flash or Java. All they knew was they wanted to watch a video or play a game. That's all they knew. And so when the update came out and the browsers could now do that internally without these very dangerous Java, people didn't realize it. They didn't even notice. Harry, you have Mara too. Yes, absolutely. So Mara's background is more corporate IT. So when we start talking about some level 1, level 2, I can't even think of the words, let alone explain it. That's all easy for her. That's off the top of her head. Losing our connection. So I continue to wait for our signal to come back while we're recording locally. So right now I'm not probably talking to anybody but myself, except that the machine's recording it and you will have the ability to see the playback at what you've missed, because we keep dropping the connection. It keeps just failing. I think I should try switching the server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop streaming for a minute here, but I'm not going to end the broadcast. So stay there. Don't move. We are back again. I see that. I think what I want to do is I want to change to the, YouTube has 2 ingest servers. But in order for me to switch, I have to stop the broadcast and restart it. I don't have to stop this video. So if you guys stay right where you are, let me stop streaming for a second, but I will keep the broadcast running. You'll just get like a black screen. Let me switch to the other YouTube ingest server. I don't know. I might be on the backup one right now. Whatever one I'm on, I'm going to switch it to the other one, and then I'll start streaming again. So you guys stay right where you are. Of course, it's working right now, but that's good because I want to explain this to you so I don't lose you. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know that I can control it, but let's just try that, because it could make it worse, right? Shouldn't have said that. I'll be right back. And I just, the only other option I had was to end the broadcast and create a new one. And I don't want to create a third alert out to everybody's email address, right? Because YouTube won't send out any more than 3 a day anyway, but I don't want to flood somebody's inbox, and it would do that. So anyway, we'll just see how this goes. It is what it is. We've been downloading updates the whole time. You haven't missed anything. Although you could say that about all my broadcasts. More of the same. Let's see. So yes, if you have any questions for me while we're waiting, we'll certainly be glad to try and either give you an answer or point you to the answer. And of course, the chat room will help as always. And we only do this during live shows. I'm not taking tech support calls from random strangers who don't support the show. I don't have time. But if you're a member, of course, you're welcome to reach out anytime for any reason. Because of the members, these shows exist. So, all right, let me look at the full screen over here so I can see. There it is. Full screen for me. So these that say retry on them, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I really expected this download to move faster, but it is moving, so we'll leave it alone. Restarting it now is only going to make it take longer, but I see the numbers moving up, and it's downloading 3 things at the same time on a. Even though this connection's better, it's only like twice as good as the previous one, maybe 3 times. So it's barely, 100 megabit. Paul Gray with a $50 Australian contribution. He goes, here's for Carey's internet bill. Thanks, Paul. That'll cover 1/3 of it. No, I appreciate you very much. You're very generous. Let's see. That's still updating. Barry Klein says nothing is ever so bad that it can't get worse. Yeah, someone I met once told me when I said, oh, it's Murphy's Law, he said Murphy was an optimist. And I thought, wow, that's pretty dark. It is hot here in Phoenix. Very, very hot. It's 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock at night as we do this live. And the temperature outside at 9 o'clock at night, 98 degrees Fahrenheit. 98. The sun is completely down. It's pitch black. The heat is radiating off of the concrete in the buildings, creating these really hot when you're in the city. The cities tend to run hotter at night because of the radiant heat, and it's miserable. So what are you going to do? What can you do? Got to get back to Michigan. Then I'll complain about how cold it is. But at least when you're cold, you could put more clothes on. You know what I mean? When you're hot, what can you do? Let me anything else to drink because I am sweating over here. The air conditioner cannot keep up here at Studio B. It's like this every summer. And I've just learned to expect it. Now, in a lot of cases, I'll put a fan on me and moving the air feels good, but I don't want to do that during a live show. We don't need the noise in the background. South Georgia. You know what? Let me get my glasses. South Georgia Basson says, I learned to build computers from your videos over 12 years ago. I'm still building NVRs for my security camera business. What would you recommend for a CPU and motherboard combo? For doing security camera recording, you don't need much. In fact, I wouldn't even use a computer if you can get away with using a NAS with the video recording licenses. That makes it real easy. But if it depends on what you want to use the computer for. Obviously, recording security cameras doesn't take a lot. You need storage to go right down the middle with the i5 line. I don't think you can go wrong. The 13500, 14500. I know there's a lot of talk about the Intel CPUs, the 13th and 14th gen having issues, but I've never seen it. I don't know anybody who has. So, I mean, if you've seen it, let me know. but the only time I've ever seen it is on Reddit or YouTube or an article. In real life, I've built a lot of 13500s. I've got a couple 13900s and 1400s. There's no problems. I don't know what people are talking about. So I don't know how many CPUs are affected. Is it 1 in 4, 1 in 10, 1 in 100? I wouldn't let that distract or worry you or disparage you from building with that 13th or 14th gen, especially if it's an i5. I think the ones that are mostly failing, and correct me if I'm wrong, are the high-end chips, the the expensive fast chips, the 14900K, 13900K. But I haven't even seen any of these chips fail yet. But I run them at the stock speeds. I'm not overclocking. We make sure we got a good cooler on there, but we don't overkill the cooler. Well, we did the other day, but that Mugen 6 was a bit much for that i5. But you know what? It looks great, it's affordable, and it worked well. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you got to watch the, it was a members only video build, wasn't it? Oh, and we lost our connection again. Oh, goody, goody, goody. Yeah, this stream will have to be re-uploaded when we're done here because this is crazy. Very unusual. Just waiting for my connection to come back, and it is slowly recovering. Getting there. Come on, there it goes. All right, it came back. Crazy. It's absolutely crazy how many times it's doing this tonight. Well, if there was any sort of emotional attachment to Studio B, that's done because I can't put all this effort into making a video and have all these interruptions. Maybe I can have Mara block YouTube. I don't like the you know, when I'm making videos, I like to teach like a classroom. And any disruption to the class, you know, as I was brought up, you got punished for it in some way, shape, or form. Once we solved the chat room issue here, which seemed to have worked well, and everybody's doing great, by the way. Thank you for your courtesy. Now we're having YouTube misbehaving. So I don't know what to do about that. Someone named Anon says, I've got another question. I got an ASUS board that worked, put it down for about 2 years, fired it up, changed the CMOS battery, but nothing works. There's a green LED on the board, swapped out the CPU, RAM, power supply. So I'd have to know which motherboard is it specifically, which CPU specifically did you put in it? How did you put it away? Did you put it in a static bag or did it sit on a shelf where the environment could get to it? Some questions are just impossible to answer because we're not provided with enough detail. So it's like the question is, can you give me detail about this vague thing? If you're vague with your question, it leads to a vague answer. And this may be so specific that it would be something I'd probably have to see in front of me. And it's likely not worth, if it's a few years old, it may not be worth the cost of repairing. If it's under warranty, which you can check via the serial number, you could send it into RMA for ASUS. If it's out of warranty, probably cheaper to just replace the board. They're not that expensive when they're a few years old. Now, why the screen just blanked out is because the video driver installed from Windows Update. And when that happens, the video driver that you're using to display video is suspended and stopped. The new driver replaces it, and then it's restarted. And that's like changing a flat tire on a car. You've got to stop the car. Then you take the flat tire out. Then you put your spare or replacement tire on, and then the car can move again. And that's just what happened here with the screen going blank. That was the video driver. Nothing to freak out about. That's how that works. Anyway, South Georgia Bassin. What I was trying to tell you before I was so rudely interrupted by YouTube's ingest server not connecting me is there is a YouTube channel from a gentleman who was making videos and then he stopped for a few years. Now he started again. And I want to show you his channel because this guy reminds me of me in the way I used to make videos, only as detailed as I was, this gentleman is even more detailed. Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me show you. Let's go to my screen capture. Capture. Yeah, that should work. Why is that not working? Oh, because I had to restart OBS. Okay, this gentleman right here. Now, here's the difference between him and I. He's got a lot more patience than I do because I've been doing this so often and answering the same questions. For 30 years, I've been asked the same questions, and I was really happy to answer them. But after about 2 decades of the same questions, it started to get on my nerves. Like, how many times do I have to keep answering the same question? Well, he's not there yet, so he's still fresh. He hasn't been ruined by people just hammering on him. Or maybe he just has better dealing with it. So I don't know how long he's been doing computer stuff or if he does it for a living. However, he's very, very good. And if I can get back over to that screen, you can see his video here it's pretty long. It's 3.5 hours long, but it's not live, it's edited. So when he's showing you like which screws to use on your board, I describe them, I'll hold them in my hands. Look at the separate cutaways he's doing in editing. Look at the detail that he's showing you. You know how much work that is to keep going back and forth? He's got to take a picture of the board that's in focus. Then he's got to put it in a photo editor and crop it. And then he's got to circle the areas with some kind of software to show you where the holes are for the heatsink to go in. That's a great level of detail. I mean, I can't believe how much time. If this video is 3.5 hours long, I bet you he put 4 to 10 times that amount of time in editing this. So imagine if he broke it down to 3.5 hours, how much footage he started with to whittle it down to 3.5 hours, right? And he's going through the same things I showed earlier about how that bracket goes on and watching that rectangle. He's very, very good, and I can't recommend him enough. There's a scene here with the screws that I'm trying to find. Look at all the close-ups and cutaways. All of that has to be done separately, especially, well, regardless if he has a camera person or not, but likely he's using the same camera because when he does the close-ups, all the colors still match and all the lighting still matches. Usually when you use different cameras, you can tell. Like that's probably a digital zoom that he emulated a zoom in the, just like that, in his editing software instead of an actual camera person doing it. I think this is all one-man operation here. And he calls himself Nerd Sidekick. I don't want to play too much of his video, but I wanted to show you, he's using a magnetic tray to keep his screws. Again, there's a digital zoom. So he's keeping the video moving, whereas mine pretty much stays static. And when he goes to install the motherboard, yeah, look at this detail. Look at that. Now, see, he should not be using pliers. You can, but that's not good. You should be using a 5mm socket. But if you don't have one, pliers will work. They just mar it up really bad. No one's going to see it, but still, you can round out the corners. And look at that. I love that. That is, so he took the time to take those screws, get them lit well enough to take a photograph, to then import that photograph into his photo editor and then add text below it just for a few seconds. Like, look how long that stays on the screen. Think about this. You ready? He's going to show it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds. He probably spent a half an hour, maybe 20 minutes to get those 7 seconds between getting the screws set up, taking the photo, importing the photo into the photo editor, putting the text below it, putting the slow zoom on it, putting it in just the right place as he does is he's basically voicing it over. Do you have any idea how much time that takes, especially if you're working by yourself? So he calls this how to build a PC step by step, slow and easy. I disagree. This is a how to build a computer masterclass at a college level. This is every detail and every explanation of why those details matter. Some people don't want that level of detail. Some people are like, hey, you know what? Just tell me how. No, he's not going to tell you just how. He's also going to tell you why, and he's going to educate you to the details, because when you're building computers, anything technical, it's always about the details. You get a comma or a period in the wrong spot when you're writing code or you're putting in a command, that command will not work. That command could be 100 characters long, and one of those characters is wrong. That command will not work. It has to be precise, and that level of precision has to be taught. You're not just born with it. So when he's showing the close-ups like that of the screws, and he's showing you what to look for so you don't put the wrong screw in and strip it out or break or damage your device, that is amazing work. And, I'm applauding how much time this gentleman spent to make this video that edited down is 3.5 hours long, nearly. I mean, give this guy a subscribe. He's got way too little subscribers that he deserves. And that video, I'm telling you what, you won't see a more detailed build video. He nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. The reason I made my videos was because nobody else was showing how to build a computer to a level of detail. They would say, for example, put your motherboard in, and then they'd skip to the next step. It's like, well, how did you do that? So for me, I said, I'll make a video to a level that I could understand. And I filmed myself, cameras on tripods, ran it through the video editor, watch the same scene 10 times until you edit it just right. And back then, YouTube would only let you upload 15 minutes at a time. So I had to break it into 4 pieces. And what was weird is when you watch the playback numbers, part 1 would get like 2,000 views. Part 2 would get like 3,000 views. Part 4 would get like 800 views. It was like, how does this make any sense? And there was no good way to stitch them together. So viewers weren't finding the parts correctly. Oh, what a mess. And then eventually YouTube enabled the ability to upload longer videos. And then they introduced the monetization. And all of this that I was doing for fun was like, hey, I could do this full time with the monetization. I got to make more videos. I can make more money. And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, everybody's going to be home watching videos. This is going to be a boon for YouTube creators. That didn't happen. Everybody became content creators is what happened. And it saturated the market, and the advertisers kind of dried up, and all the money that was being paid out to creators was now being divided by 10 or 100 times more creators than there ever has been. So those payments dropped. And so people who are relying, even to this day, on YouTube revenue to do a full-time job as YouTube, got to put a ton of time into it, a ton of time. And when you realize how much you've been paid for your time, if that's your only revenue, you're better off getting a job at McDonald's. So I always have to remind myself, I never started this channel as a form of income. The reason this channel exists is exactly why that gentleman made his video, and that is to help people, to educate people, and to teach it once. So I don't have to keep repeating myself. You can go back and watch the video as many times as you want and hear me say the same thing 1,000 times without me having to do it. And that kind of passion where you're doing something because you're driven by helping the community and empowering people who choose to be empowered. You say, look, I can't make you want to learn this, but if you want to learn it, I can show you how. And instead of saying that to 1,000 different people, that's a very inefficient way to work. Let me make a video and then 1,000 people can go and watch it on their terms for free. And that's how all this began back in 2008. And YouTube, I think it was invented in 2006 and was ready to file for bankruptcy because the cost of the bandwidth is profoundly expensive. And they sold it to Google in 2007. So it was only a 2-year thing from the owners. And Google bought it because their neighbor let them use their garage and when they were starting out. And the neighbor had said, hey, you should buy YouTube. And they said, well, if we buy it, will you run it? And she says, yeah. Great qualifications, you know, talk about who you know. And so Susan was the CEO for a long, long time. And it bothered me because YouTube was making a lot of bad decisions, in my opinion, and continue to do so because the people running YouTube are not creators. If they make a video, they have a crew. They're not sitting in a room with a webcam and doing the editing. Look, I'm a creator like you. Yeah, I've rebooted my computer, so I'm a tech too. So, you know, ask me how I feel about that. But he is really, really good, really good. And for some reason, it looks like he took about 4 years off. If you look at Nerd Sidekick's channel, he's got videos 4 years ago and then nothing, like nothing new other than like this video here is recent. So I hope he watches this and I hope that he feels inspiration. As much work as that was, keep going. We want more. We want more. Get off my lawn. What is this doing? Is it waiting on me? Yeah, it's waiting on me. Let's go. I mean, it's still installing. It's like an Intel display driver, but it can do that during the restart. Now, on this restart, that should be the bulk of the updates. We're going to check the device manager. The good news is this thing's booting perfectly. So I don't know what the heck was going on with it. That's why I put it aside. Sometimes with tech or any trouble that you're working on, some people, they get really angry and frustrated and they're like, I'm not going to stop until this is done. And all they do is make it worse. You've got to lose that attitude unless it's in a life or death situation. If you have the opportunity to walk away when you're angry and frustrated and you want it done, just get it done another. Just go, look, the universe doesn't want me to fix this right now. Let me take a break. Let me de-stress. Go watch some TV, go to bed, have a snack. Try and get your mind on something else. Tomorrow, wake up refreshed. When you feel like it, get back to that project. It'll probably work like a snap. That's what's happened right here. I can't explain it. Now, I will say his video is really for beginners. It's very slow and it's very explanatory regarding every little detail. I love that. For many of you who are more advanced, who already know the basic information, you might find his class to be very basic and not of interest to you because of the slow pace. But if you stick with it, I bet you're going to learn things you didn't know. But you're going to, it'll be little bits here and there that'll make it worth watching. Or don't watch it. I mean, again, maybe refer it to people who want to build and they're really nervous, like who should, if I want to build a computer, how do I learn that? I would point them to this gentleman's video. I wouldn't point him to my own video. I think he did a better job than me. Sam, just being honest. I mean, I did it first. It's not a competition. Now, let's see what happens on our update here. Just think that's with the faster internet connection. It's taking this long. And another reboot. Lovely. Yeah, installing Windows is fun, isn't it? It's the state of the technology. You know, people are going to look back at this and they're going to say, I can't believe you guys had to do that. Yeah, that's how it was. And we were happy to have it. Hey, Jason Wyrick joins us. Welcome in, Jason. Let's see. Go full screen here. So when you get this screen after a Windows update, a lot of people just say, remind me, and it'll just keep annoying you. The best way to get rid of it is to hit continue and then hit skip and then hit not now and then hit cancel and then hit skip for now. And that won't come up anymore until another Windows update, maybe several months from now. It won't happen every single Windows update, maybe once every 6 or 8 months. It's Microsoft marketing doing their thing. Now, if we go back to Windows Update and check, there's probably an update or two still waiting. So we're going to hit that and let it check. And well, it's, you see this retry all? Oh, so there's a driver installing in the background. That's a video driver. Yeah, it certainly is. Now I see what's happening. The Intel display driver is installing, and that's why I'm not able to click anything here. It's all grayed out. So we need to leave that alone and let that work. But while it's doing that, we can do other things. So let's look at the device manager. I right click on the start button, go to device manager, and you'll see we have a number of unidentified devices here. And the best way to sort this out, in my opinion, first of all, is let Windows Update do its thing. Leave it alone. And when Windows Update is done, then you can check and see what's left. But for the purposes of, well, first of all, let's get rid of camera one. I want you to see the whole screen. You don't need to be looking at me anyway. If we go to, where was I? Oh, I want to make this full screen for me. Oh, now it wants to restart again. All right, well, let's restart it again. What we need to do is we need to go to the motherboard manufacturer's website. Okay, now you can see me because, yeah. We need to get those drivers from the motherboard manufacturer's website. You're going to say, but Carey, how do I know which drivers they are? Well, usually what's called the Intel SMIO driver is needed. Or if you're on AMD, you just download the AMD Adrenalin software. Just go to Google, type in Adrenalin software. And it's a free download. And that will likely fill in all those missing devices for you. But on the Intel platform, let's go back again. You want to go, when you're dealing with the latest chipsets that were not invented when Windows 11 was coded, it doesn't know what this brand new hardware is that's modern, updated stuff. So for that, we need to go to the manufacturer's website. So while that's checking for update at the same time, go through all this before they'll let us use it. We don't know why people prefer Chrome, because Chrome doesn't do this. All right, now let's type in ASUS Z690-PLUS Wi-Fi. Same way that I found BIOS update. And the first link that, well, this is Bing. If it were Google, the first link should be ASUS. Lovely. Is everything so slow? Finally. Well, I'm guessing this internet connection has to do with me, because I'm noticing this connection here on the desktop that I'm working on. It's slowed to a crawl. What that implies that my upload speed is being affected by something else. Very interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep the screen where it is, because while this stream is recording locally, at the same time, I'm trying to address two different audiences, right? I got an audience watching live where the stream continually gets interrupted. And I've got an audience that will watch this recording who doesn't understand what's going on. Everything seems fine to me. But this is the downside of live broadcast. And I don't know why we normally, don't have a problem. But tonight, for some reason, we're having internet connection issues over and over and over again. And it may, in fact, be on our side. Very strange. And by the way, as far as I can tell, all day today, this stream has been fine. So I don't know why this would happen. I'm just waiting for it to recover. It always recovers. So hopefully it'll recover here in just a moment. Wow, it is really struggling to come back. So on OBS, I can see how many megabits per second it's transferring, and it's down low. The signal strength, or the bandwidth that it's transmitting, is very, very low. And Mara says it's getting too late, but she set us up for tomorrow's video. That's going to be a live video where we continue on the Johnsbow build that we started a while back. All right, I'll get my connections back and I can move on. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to type in the name and model of the board, right? So it's an ASUS Z690-PLUS WIFI. And we'll search for that. And the first link that Google presents, oh, I can put the word drivers. And yeah, right here, asus.com. We're going to click on that link. And everything died again. Crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I'm going to hang in there because I really want to get these drivers updated. And the connection is just not cooperating tonight. So be patient here as we struggle through whatever's going on. But we want the drivers. And I think this page is still loading. I don't think it's ready yet. You notice the support bar over here. If I click on support, this might take us to ASUS support. And I want support specifically for this motherboard. There's two different supports for every manufacturer, MSI, ASRock, ASUS, Gigabyte. They all do this. There's a support way up at the top of the page, and then there's support down by the product. So support at the top of the page is generic support. Like I need help with something else, and support at the one that's below the support link is for that specific product that you're looking at on that website at that time. So that's an easy way to get to the support for your specific motherboard or driver, for your specific printer, etc. I don't know if it's printers, but I got a message here. What does this say? Cookies, they will accept cookies. So this support, see there's two supports, one up here, one down there. We're going to hit that one. It's just loading really slow. So we're definitely having some, oh, that was faster. We're having some weird Wi-Fi connection issues, I guess. It seems very random, but let's just keep going here. It does look like we're broadcasting again. When we go to the ASUS website and we go to the motherboard, we click on the support button, and then we go over to drivers and tools. Now, here's the thing. With drivers, you're going to see a lot of drivers, and you see tabs up here for drivers and tools left, and BIOS and firmware on the right. We want the drivers and tools. That'll be the default. Now, we don't need the LAN connector. We don't need the Wi-Fi driver or the LAN driver or the Wi-Fi driver. We do need this chipset driver. So we're going to download that. That's probably going to take care of a lot of those items that we see that are unknown in our device manager. And that's going to download. And let me get rid of the camera here for a second so you can see the download is happening there. And then you'll probably, well, I was going to say you might notice when the download stalls, but then when that happens, it'll probably disconnect us again, which it has. And while it's doing its thing, let me go back to full screen over here. Full screen. So our sound card, I believe, is working fine. I don't think we need the audio driver. We certainly don't need the video driver. We certainly don't need the Bluetooth driver. That's pretty much it for the drivers, as far as I can tell. So of all the drivers, it looks like only the chipset is the one we need. So we're going to start there, let that download, and then once we've got the chipset driver installed, we'll probably need to reboot, and we'll go back into Device Manager and see if there are any other devices remaining that need drivers. I'm hopeful that this takes care of it 100%. Where's our downloads at? Okay, the download completed. Let's open it. Let's extract all. And we're going to look for a setup. Here's something called auto setup. Let's run that. And click yes. That is a weird way to install drivers. Very strange. Here's one called install. I mean, I don't know. Did install do it? Let's take a look real quick at our device manager and see if it made any changes. That was weird. Not what I was expecting. It hasn't made a single change. Well, what good is that? What if I point this to that folder? Browse my computer. Let's go to the downloads folder. And there's our driver folder there. Click OK and let it search and see if it finds it. Nope, does not find whatever that is. Fascinating. You would think ASUS would have a better driver installation process here, because this is even throwing me. Double click install. Don't run. Come on. Run it anyway. Same thing. Wow, this is very, very strange. Not at all what I was expecting. Huh. Well, apparently it's been updating in the background. So let's go ahead and do the restart. And then, of course, we'll look back at the device manager and I can show you how to load these drivers. Now, if we want to cheat, I'm going to call it cheating, we can download that ASUS crate. Remember, it asked us if we wanted it. And we can go to the ASUS website and download that now. We don't have to be invited. In other words, when it posted that invitation on the screen, that's just an invitation. You can come back later and do it on your own, which is what we can do. And the ASUS crate should then offer the drivers we need. Now, we should have been able to grab it just like I showed you. And usually with a company as reputable as ASUS or ASUS, or ASUS, depending on how you say it, usually all of that's very well refined. To have a driver open like that and not really tell what it's doing or any clear instruction, that's not normal for ASUS. But it doesn't stop us, right? We'll go a different route. If that didn't work, which is fine, it means that we get to extend this little experience together, what alternatives are, because there's nothing worse than somebody making a video going, see, if you do this and you do this, you get that. And then you do the same thing and you don't get the same result. So Here is an example of that where somebody would load the driver and then you do it and the driver doesn't work. So what's another way to do it? Again, the ASUS Crate software. So if we look at, well, first of all, let's just check the device manager just to see if any of those devices after the reboot, it's the right mouse, had an impact on that or not. No, it didn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 unknown devices. That's pretty severe. However, I've seen people bring a computer in for service, and that's the way they've been running it since they reinstalled Windows and had no idea that those things weren't working, whatever those PCI devices and unknown devices are. So what you can do, again, is we can go back to the ASUS support page. So this is the ASUS, that model there. We want to scroll to the manufacturer's website, which is listed at the top of the link. So that's how you don't get suckered into clicking on the wrong link. Back over to support. Only this time, when we look for drivers and utilities, we want to look at utilities. That's all. So we've got Windows 11 64-bit. We know it's not a LAN driver. We know it's not, I'm pretty sure it's not the Wi-Fi driver. The chipset driver installs very strange. It's just a weird driver. Audio driver, I think, is fine. And now it's software and utility. This is their AI suite, which is like power saving stuff, system information. SATA is like if you want to use a RAID controller, this motherboard is RAID capable. And then Armory Crate and Aura, that's how you're going to control your RGB lighting, is through the Aura software, which is part of the Aura Crate. And as you can see, Aura Crate is pretty small. We can go ahead and install that. I don't even think we need to extract it. It looks like it's just one installer file. But do know this kind of software can cause a blue screen after a Windows update. It's happened. You're like, trying to diagnose why your computer keeps crashing, and it's all because of the stupid RGB software. In fact, the Aura software caused that problem for me with Studio B, which is all recorded live, where I figured out it was the Aura software on a brand new build. A virtual pet I don't want. Oh, that's unchecked by default. Yeah. That's all the defaults are exactly the way I want it. That's refreshing. Now, when the Aura Crate software installs, one of the features it should have, if I'm not mistaken, is the ability to just look for the latest drivers. And we'll see if it does that. I know MSI does this in Gigabyte, in ASRock. I haven't used ASUS often enough to be familiar with it, but I'm hoping it's in there. Anon says they use third-party driver programs. I just feel like if you're telling me you use a third-party driver program, I feel like we're back in 2002, 2005. I've seen so many systems crash because of bad drivers coming from third-party drivers. Plus, they put all the software on your system and they nag you. I only want the source of the hardware manufacturer for which I need the driver. I do not want to pay for a driver, and I don't want to use any software or put any software on my system that I don't need. If I can go and grab the driver myself, I have reassurance that I'm grabbing the right one, that it's not a virus, that I'm not paying for it, and that I'm getting the latest version. And you won't get all those reassurances consistently with third-party driver support. And that was necessary back in the day. Back in the day, if you'd asked me about it, I'd be now 20 years later, I've left that behind. A piece of software. You're not a tech. Like if you claim, and I'm not saying you're making this claim, there are people who claim to be computer techs and that's how they do it. 6-year-old could do that. Where's your skill? How do you know the drivers you're installing are going to be the right ones, not be infected, and be the latest version? Because you're trusting a third party? And why is a third party offering this to you? Probably for money. So I don't need to spend that money. I don't need my system resources being taken up by a driver installer I use once. I will go and get the drivers direct from the manufacturer for all those reasons. And I consider that a matter of pride in the quality of work that I do. I'm not taking shortcuts, and I'm not doing things the old way. I'm trying to keep everything modern and stay up to date because I need to stay in business and I need things to go quickly and not have side effects. I don't need to install a wrong driver, think it's working, and then have to come back to blue screens every once in a while. And now I got to diagnose a new problem. I hate that. And the customer hates it too. But you know, if you're working on your own home computer, you do whatever you want. The only person you're affecting is yourself. So anyway, that's why I'm so passionate about that. Take a lot of pride in never, ever using third-party driver software. It's like using crutches when you're fully capable of walking, or using a wheelchair when you're fully capable of walking. To me, it's like, really? That's what you're gonna do? You're not gonna walk? You're gonna sit in the wheelchair when you're perfectly fine? Okay. That's how I see it. You know, I just shake my head and yeah, okay. So anyway, we're downloading that. I had to go get a cold Gatorade. But listen, I'm not telling you how to do anything. I'm just sharing with you how I run a business and stay in business. A lot of computer businesses only stay around for about 3 years, and they just can't sustain the rent and the overhead and all the free warranty work and customers that are, you know, expecting a discount or whatever. And so they usually go, hey, this is way too much work and we don't make enough money, and they just close it down. So by working by myself and not having any employees to take care of, I don't have to worry about keeping employees busy. So we're back to, you know, once again, we're having these connection issues, which is just the weirdest thing ever. And I'm going to keep moving forward with the show, and I will just, as I keep mentioning, I have a local recording that won't have any of the interruptions you guys watching live are having. I apologize that it's happening, but there's nothing I can do. Josty1 wants to know if there was a RAID driver in the device manager list. I did not see one. It had a SATA driver, and maybe it was in there, but we don't necessarily need to grab it from there. If my internet connection will come back, this download can continue. But as people watching the recording can see, the download is kind of paused. The red bar is not moving any further. The people watching live, I keep going in and out, so they're only getting bits and pieces of this broadcast, which has got to be super annoying for the viewers, right? It's bad enough if it happens once or twice, but it's been going on throughout this stream consistently, painfully. Now we're back, and I do believe the download is continuing and the red bar is starting to move again. This isn't that big of a program, but these wireless, I say wireless, we have a bridge. Everything in here is wired, right? We run wires, but we do have a bridge. And if the bridge is having connection issues or failing, well, it's good timing since we're getting out of here anyway. We'll have to wait and see how it performs over the course of the next few days. This better not be the new normal. I hope this is just some weird thing that's happening. Very odd. Very odd. But we're going to keep marching forward because we're very close to the end here. I just need that internet. That's all it needs. Hopefully, we'll see. It looks like we're reconnecting right now. It looks like the reset of the bridge is initializing and reconnecting us. Now, it does show that we are back to broadcasting again and a good signal. However, is it going to stay that way? I don't know. No, it just dropped again. Very bad. That is one of the strangest things. It's so inconsistent. Oh, well, here's what I know. I know it's not my router. I know it's not the computers because all the computers in the tablet are being affected by this. So it all boils down into a bridge. Now, if I switch over to the slower internet connection, that might help. I don't know. But at this point, I'm getting desperate. So let me see what I can do. Again, when we're live, this is real life. This is how we solve problems for customers. In our case here, we're a bit unique in that we have 2 internet connections, and we can fall back to the slower one if it's more reliable Even if it's slower, that would be preferred to what we're experiencing right now. So what I've got to do is I've got to switch over. If I can find, just a second. You know, there's a power cable here somewhere. Okay, there it is. I'm just going to give you a vocal play-by-play here on what I'm doing. I'm going to set up our secondary internet connection here, the slow connection, because I think we're having some kind of a weird Wi-Fi issue. So I'm going to give that a minute to initialize the modem. And then I will feed the modem into the router, and we'll see what happens, because that's a much slower connection. But I can see, like right now, we're broadcasting okay. And I don't know how long this will last, right? But I just want this darn Amazon crate to install. Just download it. Imagine how frustrated I am. Now, keep in mind, if I wasn't making a video tonight, if I decided to do all this off camera, I would have been done an hour ago. You have to understand that a lot of things slow down when you've got to deal with, and there it goes again. I can't even finish a sentence. Crazy. It's just crazy. All right, let me go back over and see if our modem is initialized over here. See what happens. Okay, we're going to disconnect here for a minute. Once again. So what I'm witnessing here is the cable modem is dropping the connection to the router. Every time the TP-Link router loses its connection, the red lights flash. And when the connection comes back, the red light becomes like a rainbow that moves really smoothly for like this fire effect. And so by looking at the router, it says, oh, we're back up online, and that's all well and good. However, the bandwidth, the upload bandwidth on this connection is less than half of the wireless one we were using. The question is, will it stabilize? And of course, we're using that same connection to download at the same time. So we're putting a lot of pressure on this very, very low budget bandwidth, like the lowest tier possible, the cheapest tier that the ISP offers. And I can't change that. That's why I'm on the other one. But maybe this will stay up even if we're at a bit rate that's quite low. Let's see here. Brush this and reconnect to the chat room. Hey, will it work? It looks like it works. David Graham with a $2 super chat. He says, thank you for sharing your all-nighter with us. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, it wasn't supposed to be an all-nighter. Sometimes, you know, I think, did I make the right decision here? Should I have just gone to bed or watched TV? No, I'll make a video. Great idea. Great idea, they said. It'll be easy, they said. It'll be fun, they said. All right, finally, the Armory Crate was able to finish downloading. And we're going to keep moving forward, even if the bit rate sucks right now because of our upload bandwidth. Windows user account control. Armory Crate requires your permission to complete this program. Please agree. I don't know, whatever. Yes. All right, well, at least this is an installer. We're not reliant on the internet. I can't imagine what this connection looks like, but the bandwidth on it is definitely below what YouTube wants. We're not getting the kilobits per second the other connection was giving us. And it appears, I can't tell if it's stable. You guys will have to let me know because it's struggling, but that's normal. The amount of bandwidth I need to upload live at 1080, I need about 8 megabits up. And this connection gets about 3. And the other connection gets around 100. if we have a good solid connection and not a lot of people are using it at the same time. So from 3 to 100, and I only need like 8 to 10. It's not much on the upload bandwidth. This is torture. I mean, I know it's torture for you guys, and I appreciate the people who stuck around. Carey, did you get the Canadian PayPal money? Canadian PayPal money. You know what? I haven't checked the phone in a while. And since we're waiting for the install to finish, let's take a look at what I'm missing here. I don't know. How did you send? Did you? So he said PayPal. I don't see anything from PayPal today. Did you send it? When did you send it tonight, or did you send it? Are you asking about something you sent in the past? Canadian PayPal money. Huh? No. No, I don't. I don't see anything recent. I assume you sent it to the CareyHolzman address. I didn't expect this Armory crate to take this long to install. Usually the utilities from like MSI, ASRock, Gigabyte, they're not this big. I mean, whatever this is doing and why it's taking so much time on a 12600, which is a relatively fast processor, with a fast Gen 4 NVMe drive, unless it's downloading something, and I can't tell because the text is super tiny. Let me see if I can. Oh, it is downloading. Okay, so as long as it's downloading, it's not necessarily that the application's huge. It's that the internet connection we're using is super tiny, right? It's like we're trying to push through a bunch of stuff through a little teeny tiny pipe. Winston Liu says it was 2 days ago. Did I get something from Winston 2 days ago? You know what? I can use a search on my phone. You know, please understand, I get a ton of messages every day. Usually I'll say thank you, you know, just send a reply, a thank you for any contributions. But sometimes I forget. I'll get to that later. And then a bunch of new messages come in. I'm like, oh, I better take care of that. So let's just do a quick search here for Winston. PayPal, July 26th. So this was last week. Winston Liu sent you $10. Yes, I received that $10. There was a 45-cent fee that PayPal took, and it left me $9.55 US. And I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Was it July 26th? Because if it was 2 days ago, that would have been July 30th. Thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate you very much. Hope that's the right one. Harry, did you quit drinking Coke? Oh no, I still have Coca-Cola. It doesn't feel as refreshing to me. You know, I've been drinking Coca-Cola. Well, please understand that as I was growing up, my parents didn't have any money. We were pretty well poor. You know, we had a roof over our head, but our dishwasher was broken, our air conditioner and heater were broken. So I would spend my day at the mall or the movie theater when it was hot, ride my bike. I lived off $1 a day. So if my parents bought Coca-Cola, me or my siblings, whoever got to it first, was kind of the rule. I mean, a can of Pringles was like a specialty. Like, okay, we'll get the can of Pringles this time, you know, as we're shopping. And when you bring the can of Pringles home, whoever gets to it first, right? And I'm not saying the person who gets to it first will eat it all, but there'll be less left for you. And then you have some of it, and then another sibling has some of it, and within an hour, it's gone. So in the case of Coca-Cola, you know, the store brand sodas are cheaper. And I remember my father, this was universal. My mother would do this, my father would do this. But my father explained it this way. We're at the grocery store trying to get some groceries. And, you know, we're latchkey kids, meaning that when we get back from high school, in this case, I'm a high school student. At this time I'm talking about, my father would be at work until, let's say, 6 o'clock. So if I'm getting home from school at 2 or 3 o'clock, I'm home alone. So my father's like, we'll go to the grocery store, we'll get stuff that you can eat, that you can cook, take care of yourself. That was Gen X, man. That's how we were raised. And it's very common. So I said to my dad, can we, get this 12-pack of Coca-Cola? He goes, no, you guys go through that stuff. And I'm like, well, don't you want us to go through it? Or do you want it to just sit on a shelf and go bad? And he says, you know what I mean. So when I was finally able to live on my own and buy what I wanted, I overdid it on the Coca-Cola, right? Because it was like forbidden fruit. I'll have as much as I want. After 40 years of that, I've had enough. Like, I still enjoy it, but it doesn't, whatever I was getting from it, whatever kept me coming back, that's faded. I don't know what it is. It's just not as refreshing as it used to be. It doesn't satisfy me like it used to. Maybe my metabolism's changing and that's a part of it. Or maybe I've just had too much of it over 40 years. Because remember, there were days I would go through 5, 6 cans of that stuff. And I knew that wasn't healthy and it was expensive. But I was also living my own life my way by my rules. And if that's what I wanted, then that's what I was going to have. So you think, yeah, I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. But then it turns out, at least in my case, my desire for it, the satisfaction that I got from it is faded. It's not so important to me anymore. It's okay. I'll have one from time to time. There are days that I don't have one at all, and I don't want one. It doesn't sound good to me. I can guarantee if I go to a restaurant, fast food or dine-in, I will order a Coke with my meal. But if I make a meal at home, I'll probably have water or Gatorade with it, or that Clearly Canadian. It's like the drinks are getting more expensive the older I get. Anon says Coke doesn't taste as before. I don't think it's changed. I just think our perspective has changed. Sometimes in life, as we get older, our palate and our tastes can change, and the way we see things can change. You and I could both look at something and define it differently. Like the whole glass half full, glass half empty, glass is too small, the glass is too big. This could go on and on and on. It's all about perspective. And I'm sure that as we grow as human beings and we evolve, that we don't stay the same person with the same attitudes that we had when we were kids. Life kind of changes us, and that's called evolving. I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. You can't say, well, you're a hypocrite because you used to say this and now you say the opposite. Yeah, because I grew, I evolved. So I don't think that way anymore. I see it a different way. Isn't that good? Or do you want somebody who just stays the same across, you know what I mean? Where's the Coca-Cola? You should just keep drinking it. It's like a trademark for me. They're not paying me. I'm doing that because I wanted it. Now I don't. On occasion. So, long answer to a short question. But yeah, if you grow up having nothing, then you better take care of whatever you have, because you won't be able to get it again. Not, you don't have any means to go buy another one. Whatever it is, you got to take care of it. Installation completed. Reopen the armory crate. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Typical Carey. Oh, the Intel, yeah, this rapid storage technology driver. I'll bet you we need that. But let's just see if Armory Crate will offer us. Have to agree. It's going to make us scroll to the bottom. Like, sure, we read that. Follow your desktop. Go to Aura wallpaper. No, I don't want to do. Skip that. Log in. I don't want to do that. Cancel. Okay, so what is this? This is a dashboard. This gives us, oh, it's pretty. Okay, but is it useful? Game launcher, fan speed, Aura sync. This is our RGB controls. What do we have over here? This is all Aura. Here's the tools. Okay, driver under the tools. Does it show? Yes, it's showing us all the drivers we need. This is the one I was looking for. This Intel Serial IO is the one that's going to solve a lot of those unknown devices and PCI devices. And we just want to make sure that we're not going to get Norton or some other trial software that companies will throw in. ASUS has been known to do that. But I'm proud, I'm happy that these are just literal drivers with no other potentially unwanted programs. So let's grab all that. So that's going to download those drivers so we don't have to grab them manually, which is what I tried to do first. And then it will automatically install them. So this is kind of a lazier way to do it, but at least it's not a third-party driver utility. This driver utility comes from the motherboard manufacturer. And there's a legitimacy to that you are going to get the right driver, you are going to get the latest driver, and further, if the manufacturer has customized that hardware in any way, other drivers may not work, like trying to put an NVIDIA driver on a laptop. Take the Ace Magic laptop. If you want to put the video driver on that, you have to get their version. The NVIDIA driver says, hey, this you have to go to your manufacturer for this card. And if they don't update it, there's nothing you can do. If the manufacturer of the laptop does not update the driver that is made by another company, but they modified it, then the only place you can get the driver is from the manufacturer of the laptop. I don't want to rely on a third party to do that right. Get back on the third party thing. Man, this connection's slow, but at least it's working. You know, what can you do? Brad says hello. Hey, Brad, welcome in. David Graham says, so I woke up from a dream where I was jumping through dimensions and I found this live stream. Yeah, you're in an alternate universe. Stealth Mode said he was a latchkey kid as well. Yeah, I mean, look, whatever generations say about each other, we didn't choose it. You know, we didn't say, oh, I'll be Gen X or I'll be millennial. You were born when you were born and you had no say in it. And you had to live under certain circumstances. And I can tell you as Gen X, we had it rough. And we didn't want other kids to have to go through what we went through. And so that the kids that we had, the millennials, or even possibly Gen Z, may be parented by Gen X. Mostly, you know, the Gen Z could be kids of millennials. It all kind of depends. But regardless of how we label the generations, I think every generation tries to make it better for the next one. And yeah, there's going to be struggles. Life is not Disneyland. It's struggle. It's fight. And if you got no struggle or fight in you and you're just laying around like, you know, Caesar, whatever, having someone feed you grapes, I don't know. That sounds like a pretty miserable way to live. Having something to work towards, having a goal and getting fulfillment from that goal keeps you moving. It keeps you feeling like you have a purpose. And it's up to you to decide if you have that purpose. So when I hear younger generations complaining about stuff, and I see how good they have it with their every bit of knowledge in their hands with their smartphones, they have an assortment of television, not just 3 channels, HD TV and amazing sound. Download your music instantly with apps like Spotify. You just, whatever song you want. If a song is playing and you don't know what it is, the Shazam app will tell you the name of the song, and then you can tell Spotify to add it to your library. And you can do that without getting in the car and driving to the record store and saying, hey, do you know the song that goes do, 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 do? And the guy's looking at you like, no, keep singing that. That's his entertainment for the day. He has no idea what the heck you're singing. No clue. You're embarrassing yourself. Kids today, they don't have to do that. And I think that, their issues are legitimate, but nowhere near. Like if we didn't make it any better, if this generation was growing up the way we did as latchkey kids, I think the things they'd be complaining about would be very different, much more serious, more life and death, not about, hey, you have to listen to me when I talk, or whatever the issue is. And I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm not saying they're wrong. But that's more of a like you really want respect and you want people to treat you, and so you should. But that's not life or death. Like with Gen X, we had to deal with defending ourselves and fending for ourselves because there was nobody that was going to help us. So if you didn't claw and crawl to get out of a bad situation, nobody was helping you. At least that's how it was for me. So you had to be a survivor and you had to be capable of doing it by yourself. So that's a pretty serious issue to try and work out versus, I want you to call me a certain pronoun. We had much more serious issues. And I'm glad that they don't have to deal with it, but they don't know any better. So every generation wants to, I hope, make it better. But I think it's important to know these generations didn't choose. They didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be a boomer. It's not a choice. And I think we all do the best we can. And I think we all want to make it better. We're not trying to make it worse. They might think differently. You're ruining the economy. You put us into all this debt. You made houses too expensive. No, I didn't do any of that. Well, your generation did. You polluted the air. You got greenhouse gases warming the planet. That's all your fault. It isn't. Stealth Mode says, Carey, I was trying to remember that app, Shazam, to find songs. Oh, that's fantastic. I found a song the other day. Let's see if I can get myself in trouble here. Well, that's playing. Well, that's downloading. Maybe we can go over here. Let's bring up YouTube and just torture my internet connection here. And let's see. We'll type in Broken Peach One Way. This band. Oh, look, we got an ad. I wonder if they'll play an ad on top of the ad that I'm playing. Let's skip that. What is this? Dismiss this. Skip that. Finally, a video. This is a remake of a Blondie's One Way or Another song. And I don't know the point of the beginning of this video, but the way they dance and move and sing is pretty interesting. I think they're from Spain. They have a bunch of cover songs and other songs they've done, and they make a whole getup out of it. It's always different, but it's always a little creepy. Now, Broken Peach. I don't know. I was searching around on YouTube one day, and what the heck is this? It's actually not too bad. And speaking of Blondie, there's Miley Cyrus did Blondie, Part of Glass. See, I don't have to type a lot of the words when you're searching. Just type the main words and your first result is there. And, oh, did my connection go away again? Wow. There it goes. So Miley is singing Blondie in a very unique way, and she's really, really good. I'm really warming up to her talents. She's really good. I mean, never mind the way she's dressed. Listen to how she sings the song, and I can tell she really likes that song, as do I. She's put a lot of passion in the voice, you can tell. And then she also did a duet with Billy Idol. I think they did Rebel, was it Rebel Yell? So she's not just a country singer. She's got a little bit of everything, and she does everything so well. So I was dismissing her earlier on in her career, and now she has earned my respect. I'm like, wow, she's really good. So if you like different styles of music from country to rock, check out some of the videos she's done on YouTube here. That's what keeps me up till 2 in the morning. Oh, there's another. Oh, let me see what this video is. What's that video? Forget the main channels, the main networks. Not interested. Let me see what's on YouTube. Stealth Mode says Miley has matured. Yeah, I think that's fair. Adam Jensen says her voice is so unique. Agreed. There's also a gentleman who, what I enjoy watching is some people will create some of the popular songs of the 80s using these small keyboards, and they layer the song, they loop it. So if we look for, a very popular one is Take on Me, and it'll be on I think an Akai piano. And this will allow the player, someone who's playing this, and we'll skip this ad here. Come on. Gonna make us watch this? Yeah, I'm gonna vote based on a commercial I saw. Okay, so this little keyboard here is like $100, and it's a MIDI keyboard with sample pads, and the sample pads enable you to create a song, a loop of, let's say, a rhythm, and then you can change the sound of the MIDI to be another instrument, and then set that up to loop, set that on top, and layer it on top. And they show you this happening in these videos, so that by the time he gets to the end of the video, the song, he's not even playing it. It's just the loops that are going. And I don't know if you guys are getting audio from this, but it's absolutely incredible to watch that. And then there's something called a launch pad. And with the launch pad, as a MIDI interface, you'll see a lot of DJs using the launch pad. And it's very interesting. Again, it's like a $100 device. And you can program all these sample pad buttons to play a song. And then you learn the pattern just like you would learn, only you're making the pattern yourself. So like this video here, impressive launchpad covers, somebody programs each button to make a sound, and they can program the color of the button they want it to do at a certain time. So someone spent a lot of time programming this, and then you have to remember which keys to press in which order so it all sounds smooth. And depending on the song, you might be really moving your fingers quickly, and then if you hit the wrong button, you've screwed up the song, just like playing an instrument. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. If you guys haven't seen this stuff, there's some pretty cool stuff out there that if I was younger, I'd be totally into that. I don't have the time to learn all that and program it, but to look at the end results of some others is, like I said, it'll keep you on YouTube for hours. What's this? Let me check that out. How are we doing over here? Is this installed? It's still downloading. All right. Stealth Mode said it's like playing a new instrument. Yes. Now look, back in the day, since we're waiting, I'm still trying to fill time. Back in the day, there was a gentleman, well, he's still around. His name is Thomas Dolby. And he did Blinded Me with Science, a very popular song in the 80s. And he can now play that all by himself. And he's surrounded by keyboards. Now, he's not Dolby Sound, okay? That's like a nickname, Thomas Dolby, or a stage name. Because he was always into music, and his friends called him Thomas Dolby, because Dolby was already a thing when he was learning. But he has the ability to recreate the song. Let's go back. That's the original video from the 80s, and then this would be him like today, or 5 years ago. And he can play that whole song surrounded by keyboards and sample pads. He doesn't need any other band members. All those keyboards that he's surrounded with, including the laptop that controls it. And I was lucky enough to interview him. And when I did the radio show, I said, you're somebody who can appreciate the value of having a backup, because the voice of the guy in the song says, "She blinded me with science." He was like a Bill Nye the Science Guy. His name was Miles something. And in England, he was very popular as sort of a Bill Nye. TS audio pressing just got installed. It's fine. And so they brought him in. You can hire the actors to say lines for you. And, you know, anybody can do this. You pay the actor. There's an agency you go to. You say, you know, you get a list of actors that are available, whatever the fee is, and you tell them, you know, say these lines, say it this way, say it that way, and they'll repeat it. You record every one of them, figure out which one fits, and that's what's used in the song. Well, that guy was already pretty old when they did that. Now, 40 years on, he's long gone. He's passed on. So there's no way you can get that sample back if it's lost in a data loss. What are you going to do? How are you going to get him to do that? He's not alive anymore. You better have backups, because you'll never be able to get that sample. I suppose these days you might be able to rip it from an existing song. Maybe. But it just won't be the same as the original. There's our friend Buster. Peter Lecock joins us with a 10-pound super chat. He says, "Good morning, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat from Edinburgh, Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh, 56 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius. The temperature in Phoenix right now, in the middle of the night, it's 10:30 at night, 96 degrees Fahrenheit. Want to trade?" Now, I'm regretting doing this because the internet connection is so slow. I could have just manually got those drivers. I thought, let's just get this done. So on the one hand, it's less effort on my part to go and, you know, get those drivers manually. But on the other hand, this is taking way longer. But part of that is my internet connection itself. You know, whatever's going on with it, you know, that's not normal. So we're just going to do the best we can to finish this up, because we're so close to being done. The next thing we have to do is find a case to put this board in. Since everything's working, the next video, if I do it on camera, will be to find a case that this will look good in. And I've got a couple of cases, brand new in boxes. Get that mounted in there, whether I use this power supply or another one. Get that buttoned up, and then I can take that over to Studio C rather than having to load the case and the motherboard and the power supply all separately. They'll all be in one box. Move that box carefully, not to scratch it or dent it, and get it over there to Studio C, and then repeat this with about 8 more. You know, is it 8? There's at least 5 more anyway. I've got basically 3 weeks to get it done. No pressure. Brad says, "Where do I see technology in the next 10 to 15 years from now?" You know, there's no guessing. It weaves and it moves, and the culture grabs onto things I don't get. And sometimes the things the culture grabs onto are very momentary. Forever, if you look back, whether it's Beanie Babies and everybody, you know, people are fighting over them, getting sued over them. And then you've got Garbage Pail Kid, Cabbage Patch Kids. Anyway, you've got these things that happen. So lately, like if you look at something more recent, fidget spinners, right? That was like a big deal for about 3 weeks. Now, not so much. That's all everybody wanted. Selling out everywhere. Those little, the little magnets that kids were starting to choke on, the little balls that are super strong magnets. The kids were swallowing them. And then they wanted to make that illegal to sell. And then there were electric scooters. Everybody was running electric scooters, and they, you know, rent them and they just leave them wherever. And then that lasted for about a year, and then that's all kind of gone away. And people are getting injured left and right riding those darn scooters. And then they were littering You know, wherever they left it, someone had to come get it, right? And then you've got other technology like cell phones where people really latch onto them. When we first started using them, well, you think about a landline, and then we went to a cordless phone, so you didn't have to be tethered by the wire, but you did have a battery to worry about, and it was an analog signal when we used a telephone, a cordless phone. So if your signal was a little weak or getting any interference, you got static on the line, and sometimes the static was louder than you to the person you're trying to talk to. When things went digital, all the static went away. No more static. That's one of my favorite songs by Steely Dan, and it's called FM, like AM and FM. FM is about the introduction of stereo music on FM. So imagine, well, some of you don't have to imagine, before FM, all radio was AM only. And now technology is advanced where you cannot put an AM radio in an electric car. The electric motors of the car block the signal of AM. There's no AM radio in an electric car. You could do it if you put in like a LED housing around the radio, but it would be quite expensive. Did any of you know an electric car cannot have an AM radio? Now, I couldn't see that coming. If you asked me 15 years ago, you think electric cars are going to? No, they're not. They're just terrible. And now look at all the electric cars. But now that electric cars have been a thing, a lot of people are saying, you know what, I want to go back to a gas engine, internal combustion engine, ICE, and ICE. And a friend of mine's got a Cybertruck. He absolutely hates it. Hates it. Now, before that, he had a Model S, and he really liked it. But the Cybertruck is massive. It's difficult to park it. It's difficult. Here, let's restart. Like if you wanted to clean your windshield in a Cybertruck, you'd have to be a contortionist to clean the inside of the main windshield. Just stuff like that. It's, you know, you can't really see when you're backing it up. You can't see where the corners of the car are. The cameras don't really show it right. So it handles and drives like a small car. So because the back tires will turn with the car, this is everything my friend's telling me. I'm just sharing with you what he told me. You have to kind of learn to drive all over again. It doesn't handle the way you think it will. It looks like a big, heavy car, and it is, but it drives like a little car. And it can be very difficult if the parking spaces are narrow to get that car in there. It's big. All right, with that restart, did we get our drivers? Let's take a look. Right click, go to Device Manager. We have the RAID controller right here. So that's interesting that put everything on but the RAID controller, and I wonder why it didn't automatically do that. So I think we give it one more chance just to see. It's Bluetooth. Where is the, maybe I have to launch it manually. Armory. Now this says we have all our drivers, but we're clearly missing the RAID driver. Huh. I wonder if there's any way to tell it to refresh. It's not even offered here. So likely what we need for that RAID driver is to go back to, again, all the drivers we need are going to be on the motherboard support page. I guarantee it. Using the Armory Crate as a crutch, if you have a fast internet connection, maybe a more efficient way to get there. But if you do it by hand, you'll always know how to do it regardless of the manufacturer, right? You can be, like in the 80s, we had to be self-reliant. So it's one thing to know how a specific motherboard model and manufacturer do that. But if you're a technician and you're working on different models, different makes over different eras, universally installing the drivers manually works across the board, period. So if you learn how to do that, you can work on anything. But if you rely on an app and you can't find the app or you don't understand how to use the app, because they're all different, you're not going to be successful, or you're going to work much harder. So we click on support here, and again, back over to drivers and utilities, and looks like, so the LAN driver, we're fine, Wi-Fi is fine, audio, VGA, Bluetooth, SATA. I think it's this one. At least that download's not taking forever. It's not the AI suite. It's definitely not Bluetooth or VGA or audio. It's probably not part of the chipset. This is the only thing that fits as far as I can tell. Let's extract it. Interesting, like I don't have a setup or anything here. It just says driver. That's crazy. There's no installer. So, I mean, there might be an installer back here, but usually with ASUS, it's real simple. There'd be a setup or ASUS setup.exe down here. It ain't here. We do have a folder called install and auto set ASUS setup. There it is. Let's see what happens. It's just weird we had to look for it. Usually it's right there. So the Intel Rapid Storage Technology driver is probably the RAID driver. Now, why it didn't offer it to us automatically? No, I don't want Intel Optane. They abandoned that anyway. Why are they still offering software for a product they abandoned? That's weird. Anyway, what I was talking about 10 or 15 years from now, there's no way to know. The future's gonna take turns you never saw coming. The culture's gonna latch on to different things, whether it's cancel culture. I never saw cancel culture actually having any real impact. And, you know, with regards to how people communicate, is changing. You don't have a cell phone now. How do you talk to anybody? Let's take a look at the driver device management now that we've installed. Yep, that's exactly what it was. So that took care of all of our drivers. Now, I don't remember if I ever activated this board, but if I did, it'll reactivate itself. So if we go to system, we can type in activation and Windows reported no product key was found. So I never activated this before. If I had activated Windows 11 Pro in the past, it would automatically reassign the key once we go to Windows Update. It'd say, oh, I recognize you, here's your key. So you don't have to remember your key, and you don't need a Microsoft account to do that. Now, one last thing I want to do is I want to see how fast this NVMe drive is. So let me put my flash drive in here. Here's my utilities. And let's try Crystal Disk Mark on this S880. Should be over 7,000 megabytes per second on the read speed. That's what I'm expecting to see. So Crystal Disk Mark, let's grab that, pull it over here. We can also take a look at the hardware info with Cinebench 23, just to make sure this cooler can keep the 12600K cool enough under stress. There it goes. So first, okay, that's copied off, so I can take the flash drive out. We're done with that. Let's run Crystal Disk Mark. I just don't want any other drives interfering potentially with the performance test. So that's why I don't want the flash drive in, even though it should have no impact. And let's do the full test. So if I see 7,300, 7,400, anything at 7,000 or above, I'm good. Yeah, 7,092. Beautiful. In fact, in order to speed this up, let's stop this test and just do the two main sequential read and write tests for the showing the best possible numbers you could get. That's what I'm interested in. What's our potential if everything's good? We're just shy of 7,100 megabytes per second. Megabytes, not megabits. That's pretty darn fast. And then hopefully the write speed will be somewhere around 6,000 or better. Can't remember what it's supposed to be, but this is a bargain of an SSD as far as I'm concerned. This isn't some cheap budget SSD. It's just an unknown manufacturer, at least to us. Okay, there you go. It's nearly the same. That's impressive. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so we'll let that test finish. Actually, no, I'm gonna just stop the test. We're good enough. I just wanted to get an idea. And as for Cinebench and the temperatures, let's run hardware info 64. We're gonna do sensors only. And let's see what we're at right now. Just using the computer, you know, like a normal person. Let's see. Package cores. It's up here. Core temperatures. Okay, so here's our cores. And we're running in the 30 degrees Celsius range, which is super fantastic. I mean, the hottest it ever got is in the 45 degrees Celsius. It hit momentarily, just under normal usage. That's nothing. So let's run Cinebench and let's beat the heck out of it and see just how hot it'll get. And if this Intel cooler that comes with a 12900, 13900, 14900, not the K, is this enough also to cool a 12600K? I think it should be more than enough. In theory, this should be overkill. One way to find out, we'll go ahead and start the multi-core test, and then we'll keep an eye on the hardware monitoring. In fact, I'm going to move that over here, and then I'll get rid of camera 1, because you guys can't see it there. We'll keep an eye on these temps. And what we want to watch is our maximum. This row here will show the hottest that the CPU will get. And we want to keep that at 85 or below, ideally. And so far, so this is our current temperature here on the left. And this is a record of the hottest temp we've seen so far. And we have seen Cinebench R23 cause some CPUs, if they're not being cooled properly, they hit 100 degrees Celsius, the throttle point, within the first 90 seconds. That's what it's designed to do, to see how hot your CPU can get under this extreme workload, which is synthetically recreating actual work. Now, I do hear the fan ramping up a little bit, but it's not loud at all. In fact, once this is in a case, you probably wouldn't hear it at all. But 79, that's the hottest we've got. Yeah, this cooler appears to be overkill, but we'll let this run. And in the meantime, oh, the fan just slowed down. So as the computer, as this test runs, the idea is to boost the performance, rather increase the resource requirement and then decrease it, just like a normal workload. It wouldn't be full blast all the time. It'll be a little bit of turbo, then regular, and then a little bit of turbo and regular. And when it goes up to turbo and it hits those high speeds, those high frequencies, it gets really, really hot. But you don't necessarily need a liquid cooler. And that's the point. Look how well this cooler's doing. Now, granted, it's a 12600K, but nonetheless, that's a pretty amazing processor. The number of cores and the cache it's got, it performs really, really well. Especially if you compare this to a processor from 10 years ago. If you could buy the most expensive consumer processor 10 years ago, 5 years ago, compare it to this 12600K, this 12600K is cheaper, faster, and blows it out of the water. But it may also run hotter as a result. So getting that cooler on there is important. But, you know, look, 83 degrees Celsius so far is our maximum. Well, this test runs for 10 minutes. It warms it up, and then it runs the benchmark. So let's let it run. Let's see what this will do. Everything's performing fantastic, and I'm glad I finally had an opportunity to put this together, because this is the hard part. After this, it goes into a case with a power supply. That's easy. It's pretty much done at that point. Of course, we have to get a license key. I'll go to VIP CDK Deals and buy one like I always do, and be done. And I guess while that's running, I think I'm done with my overhead camera. I think the battery died on it. I don't think I turned it off. So I'm going to go ahead and plug a USB cable in there and let that charge back up overnight. We might use it during tomorrow's broadcast. So tomorrow at 1 o'clock at the usual time, we'll be doing a continuation and hopefully completion, if not near completion, of what we call the Johnsbow build. Johnsbow is the name of the manufacturer of the case. We've showcased their cases here before, and this one is very different from any other that we've seen. It also has their own cooler, and I thought I'll use their cooler so it'll match the case. And they even have their own custom fans that run in reverse for the bottom. And I want to check all that out. I mean, I think that when you look at the pictures of it, it looks amazing. And I'm trying to recreate it. Of course, what we do with it when we're done, I can't tell you. But it's just another project we're waiting to get done. All right. What is wrong with my camera? It's not charging. Why is it not charging? Make YouTube videos. It'll be fun, they said. Come on. There it goes. All right. I think in Studio C, we're going to have to do something different for the overhead camera. You know, when we bought the Sony, we were so impressed with it, and it's just not aging well. And we have other cameras to use. There are choices. I don't think we need to buy any. We just have to figure out what camera is best for what purpose, and if we can get them tuned so that the color and brightness, all of that stays aligned when we switch from one camera to another. You know, in one camera, I might look more pale, and another camera, I might look more yellow. All of that has to be tuned, and it's a pain in the butt. And if you're using a camera that's not best for that specific job, like in this case, I need an overhead camera, but I don't necessarily want a 6 or 8 pound DSLR hanging. I'm afraid it'll fall. And that's expensive, and the lens is massive and in the way. I'm sure it'll give me great picture quality, but I need something smaller. And a GoPro is almost too small, and we're not going to get the detail. We probably have like a fisheye. We could try it, but GoPros aren't really designed to have a video output. They're designed to record and then to play it back later. So that could be a challenge. But I need something small, lightweight, that we can hang or have over the bench that I'm working on to get that top-down shot. And Studio C does not have high ceilings. So we have a number of challenges we're going to face, but at least we have something, even if it's not the best. I think it's better than nothing. But it sure would be great if it were the best. It's going to take time. And I just ask you to be patient with me as we figure all this out. Johnny Weld says the Gen 5 Crucial T705 is a beast of a hard drive. Yeah, we've installed the T700, I think. I think it's called a 705. Maybe that's a newer model. But yeah, it was running 12,400 megabytes per second on the sequential read. Crazy fast. Stealth Mode said, we love the overhead views, that Sony does have trouble focusing on certain things. Yeah, that's the problem. Is it's only offering me like spot focus. And so if I put it on autofocus, it gets a little confused as to what it thinks I'm trying to focus on. Now, newer cameras are integrating AI to sort of help with these decisions and kind of figure out what it is you're trying to do. They're not there yet, but it's coming. And it's probably going to be on your phone before it's going to be on an actual handheld camera. And actual handheld cameras will go away. Because eventually, soon, the high-end smartphones are going to have higher pixels and better picture quality than any DSLR could do. The pocket cameras, like the Canon Digital Elf, they don't even sell pocket cameras anymore, as far as I know. If they're available for sale, they're old inventory. They're not making them anymore. They're done. Nobody's buying them. Everybody's using the camera on their phone, and the camera on their phone is often far superior in quality, and you always have your phone on you. And then you probably want to share the picture with someone, and it's already on your device that you can use to communicate. So all of that's coming as far as photos go. And as far as they keep converging things into the what we call a phone, which is really just a small pocket computer with a phone app. But people are going to become, they're dependent on their phones now. You just wait. Just wait. The phone is going to become a literal life or death type situation. You will not literally be able to live without it. You'll see. It's going to be like, it's already like a drug. It's going to get worse. And there will open treatment centers. They probably already have them for people addicted. That's going to get much, much worse. Okay, so that, what do we got? 26 seconds left on the warm up. I hear the fan kind of slowing down and speeding up. I love to hear that because that tells me it's doing what it's supposed to do. Boy, 3,000 on the way. Yeah, you never know. Okay, so on the top left, you'll see that counter counting down from 10. Once it reaches 0, then it runs the benchmark after it's heated it up, and we're going to get a score. Remember, this is a 12600K. It's DDR5 RAM. It's a pretty nice system. So far, we've hit a maximum temp of 86 degrees Celsius. That is a degree over what makes me comfortable, but it's not terrible. Again, it's just momentary. It's not maintaining 86. It just hit it momentarily. And then there's our score, 17,000 points. We run the same test on the single core test, which again, just for the purpose of heating the CPU up and torturing it to make sure that it won't overheat. Then I can assure anybody who buys this computer that no matter how they use it, they're not going to have heat problems, right? Because I've tortured it, and if I can't make it overheat, my customer isn't going to torture it anywhere near like I am. So the likelihood of getting that phone call, hey, the computer you sold me is overheating, ain't going to happen because I've already tortured it, and I know my torture is far, far worse than anything the computer will do with it, the customer will do with it. So, yeah, let me put camera 1 back and move it over. That's what I need to do. Let's take it from here. Get it out of. So I'm going to probably end the stream when this test is done. I feel very confident that this motherboard is prepped and ready to be installed in a case. And so there will be a future video, likely, where I do that process. Now, I've got a few cases to choose from. Brand new in a box, I've got an NZXT H510. We have a really cool case by a company called B-Gears that's coming up tomorrow. No, it's not. No, the Johnsbow case is tomorrow. The B-Gears case is probably the Friday after that. And that's going to be really something different. And then if I walk around the room and look for some other cases, we have a Be Quiet Pure Base 600 along with a liquid cooler. And we have an NZXT S340. And I need to check that to see if it's micro ATX only or if I can fit a full-size motherboard in there. Because this is a full-size ATX board, I need to put it in an ATX size case. Some cases are micro ATX only. Not that one, but the other streamer we had was. Justy One says, I remember a time when going this late was common. Yes. Yeah. James Goodrum says he misses phone books. Oh, good riddance to phone books. Come on, are you kidding me? YTJ says hello from South Korea. Well, speaking of South Korea, Johnsbo is built there based in South Korea. It was interesting when I wanted to get the Johnsbo liquid cooler that they show in the picture marketing this case at like Amazon and Newegg. I couldn't find it for sale in the United States. So I went to eBay and found somebody was selling it. And when I looked at who the seller was, it was Johnsbo. So I ordered it and a package arrived from DHL, which usually delivers the international packages. And that was the cooler direct from South Korea. It had a South Korea return address. Usually when I get international mail, it's from Hong Kong. It's from China. So this was the first time I got a package directly from the manufacturer, shipped right to my door. And it was on eBay. So I'm really proud to be able to find those parts here in the United States. I realize I'm not going to have any warranty on it, but I don't care. Right? There's no way I can send that. It's not cost effective to send that back for warranty. But how else do I know the quality of their stuff if I don't build with it? Is that cooler going to last? Is it going to be good? I don't know. And I know if I like it and I want to buy another one, I'd go on eBay likely and find another one. But I'm just curious because everybody else on YouTube is using all the common parts. I want to find uncommon parts. I want to do it different. It doesn't mean it's better, but until we build it and see, we won't know one way or the other, will we? We make assumptions. Well, this is the name brand, it's got to be better. Not necessarily. This Johnsbo may be a name brand in South Korea, but not here in the US. So we get to make unique content and we paid for this. Johnsbo didn't send us anything for free. We bought all of it just like you would. We had to scavenge and scour the internet to try and find the extra fans we needed that run in reverse, that match the fans that are pre-installed in the case, the liquid cooler, and then we had to buy a motherboard, processor, RAM, and storage to build it, and a power supply. So when it's all said and done, it's going to be beautiful, and then it's going to go sit on a shelf. But at least we're making something different from other channels. I mean, I'm sure somebody's got the Johnsbo build somewhere, but it's not very popular. The TK1 is the name of the case. I think it's a beautiful case, and I can't wait to see it when it's done. And how are we doing? The fan got really quiet. Huh. Still running that 10-minute warm-up, and the highest temp we've seen so far, 87. 87? Yeah. That's all right. 87. If it's just, look, this is a synthetic benchmark. 87 is not terrible. It's 2 degrees higher than what I want. But I don't want to spend any more time or money, because basically what that means is we put a liquid cooler on it. And I've got liquid coolers, and I could put a liquid cooler on it. But this air cooler, if it's peaking out at 87, we're still 13 degrees away from verbal throttling. So, depending on how the customer uses it, it's unlikely they're going to run it that hot to begin with. It's possible, but it's not going to have a negative impact on them. It's designed to run that hot. I just get nervous because I think, geez, another 13 degrees in your throttle. But 13 degrees is pretty far from 87 in the temp range when we're talking about a normal idle of around 40. Also, this thing looks really cool and it's super quiet. So I think we're okay. I think 13 degrees of headroom, if it stays at a peak of a temporary 87, I think that's fine. We could make that temperature lower by putting a liquid cooler on it, but do we want to spend that money for something that doesn't matter? It is running within its normal operational range, and having it run any cooler won't make it any faster. Now, if we were getting to 97, yeah, this cooler would be out. Because 3 degrees to thermal throttling would be unacceptable for anything I build. So if we're only 2 degrees above my personal preference of 85, I can compromise. You know, you could keep throwing money at it, but at some point, I guess it depends on how much money you got and how fun you find doing all the extra cable work and stuff, putting a liquid cooler in. And the liquid cooler will eventually fail. Whether the liquid inside starts to evaporate or corrode, that happens. Or the pump fails, that happens a lot. Mostly corrosion. So even though, you know, say the computer's just sitting there running, after about 3 to 5 years, typically you need to replace your liquid cooler, typically. With an air cooler, it just runs forever. There's no maintenance, there's no liquid to corrode, no bacteria building up inside of it. It's an easier install. It lowers the weight of the case, obviously. When you add a radiator and a pump, you've got to do that extra cable management, and you're adding whatever that weight is. Usually a computer case around 35 pounds. You put a liquid cooler in it, you can easily hit 40 pounds. Stuff like this I have to think about if I'm shipping a computer, right? It costs me this, the heavier it is, the more it's going to cost to ship it. And if the shipping cost is a third of the price of the whole system, it doesn't make any sense, you know, to ship it. It makes better sense to say, I'll sell it locally, because the buyer is going to say, hey, that's way too much money. I can get free shipping at Amazon and Newegg. Yeah, I wish I could. As far as me shipping, I mean, I can receive stuff, right, with Amazon. But when I have to ship something, I got to pay for the package. I got to pay for the packing material in the box. I got to pay for the insurance. I got to make sure it gets packed correctly. And then I have to support it forever, right? If somebody calls me 5 years from now and says, hey, I bought that computer from you 5 years ago. I was wondering, you know, it's starting to do this or that. And of course, if they're local, I say, hey, bring it over or I'll pick it up. But if they live in another state because I shipped it, the cost of shipping it back to me for repair and then me shipping it back to them after it's repaired, and the likelihood of damage of the machine getting damaged in shipping to me or from me, you just cheaper to either do it yourself or find a local person to do it for you, because otherwise financially it doesn't make any sense. Okay, it looks like it finished the 10-minute warm-up and it's running the benchmark now. So this is right here at the end. We're still seeing a max 87. Okay, I am not going to spend a lot of money and time to get that 2 degrees lower or less. That's in the ballpark. I think we're fine. That fan is adequate for sure. This is an extreme example of resource-intensive work that is unlikely to happen from the customer. It's possible, but even if it did happen, it's handling it with 17 degrees of headroom. So once this thing stops this rendering of this photo, we'll get a score on the top left there. And then that'll wrap it up. David Graham says, I've seen too many and too often liquid cooler horrors. Yes, as have I. We've even shown them on this channel. If you put a liquid cooler on your computer, expect to have to replace that in 3 to 5 years. That's all. Buster says, Carey, I'm in control of my phone and not my phone controlling me. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Too many people are slaves to their phones. Their phone beeps and they're like, oh, I got to check this. This is like so super important. They interrupt the conversation they're having with you to check their phone. You know, the person that's there in person is ignored so they can talk to the other person that isn't there. What, are they more important than me? You know, I think that's really rude. And I think any kids that hear you say, well, I'm going to, you know, be in charge of my phone, they just think, oh, you think like an old person. Yeah, older and wiser. Wait till you get your turn. If you're lucky, you'll get a turn. Some people won't make it that far. That's all I'm saying. Like I said, Gen X. So, got to be a survivor. Or not. Josty one says it's 1 o'clock in the morning in Illinois. Yeah, Illinois, I think, is 2 hours ahead of Arizona. Nedrick says our brains release dopamine when we get notifications. Well, currently, that's human behavior, but it's likely going to change human behavior where it'll get worse or it'll get better. Basically, it's hard to know how society will respond, but you know, it'll peak at some point, and then something will change. It'll be like another generation that doesn't want to be like their parents, and they won't want anything to do with it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yes, currently there's a lot of people that are slaves to their phones, and just like Buster said, it should be the other way around. You check that phone when you want to, not when the phone beeps. Turn the beep off. It's like you're a servant to your phone. Beep, oh, I have to do this right now. You know, turn the beep off. Check your phone. If you want to check it every 10 minutes, at least it's you checking it, not it telling you, hey, stop what you're doing and pay attention to me. And that's all they do. They act like they're accomplishing something. I better do this right this second. I better respond. And they're trained to be a slave to the phone. But I know that generation after generation, when their kids are being ignored because their parents are paying more attention to their phone than they are to their own children, those children are going to hate phones. They're going to hate them because of the phone. My parents didn't pay attention to me. They love their phone more than me, and I don't want to be like that. And you're going to have a whole generation of kids that do not want to be like their parents and were ignored because their parents paid more attention to the phone than they did to their children. How do you think those children are going to grow up? What attitude do you think they're going to have? So you watch. It's all going to change if we live long enough to witness it. All right, the final score here, the single core test, we've got 1848 and 17053 in the multi-core. And as you can see, the test results are from like a previous generation, like 11th gen. This is faster than a previous generation i7. Think about that. In just 1 year, one generation, look at how much bigger the numbers are. It's significant. So just because something is you know, the 600 range or the 500 range, everybody's always focused on the 900, the 900K. It's expensive, it's edgy. Nobody buys a Ferrari for reliability. So if you hear about all these voltage issues and oxidation issues, I think it's all on the 900 series. I don't know of any that are affecting like a 500 or a 600, like an i5 or something like that. Maybe it is. I haven't seen it either way. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for me here on this kind of spur of the moment broadcast that has been very amateurish in its production quality tonight. Crazy with the internet connection. So in a good way, that makes me really look forward to getting out of here. You know, trying to make this space work has been a challenge since we stepped into it. And the new space will be a new challenge, but we're working with more controls than we have here. So if we need to move things, if we need to take down a wall, we're going to take down the wall. We could not do that here. If we want to, you know, put wires in the walls, we can put wires in the walls. We can make those changes if we feel that that will make a better studio. There's nothing stopping us. Whereas here, we were boxed in, this is what you got, take it or leave it. So it's never been ideal. So hopefully we'll be broadcasting soon from Studio C. And again, it will be amateurish because we will have sound and lighting issues to deal with. However, we can usually get those ironed out pretty quick. So thank you for hanging out with me tonight. And I appreciate that. You know, we opened the chat room to the public because we did an earlier video where members only can chat. What we're trying to do is we're trying to establish a level of decorum during our major live videos during the afternoon. At nighttime, it's more relaxed. Okay, so if I do another night video, it's probably going to be an open chat room, unless there's a lot of abuse. But there hasn't been tonight. I thank you guys for being respectful and exhibiting a little decorum. As long as people are respectful and show courtesy, we'll continue to do this. However, if one person, it only takes one person, creates like 3 or 4 accounts to come in and harass me, you're going to be if you're not a member, you will be the collateral as a result of that person's actions. So just keep in mind that, as a community, we should all be working together. And with open arms, we invite anybody into our community who's just not a jerk. I mean, how hard is that? So I'm very, very happy with everybody in the chat room tonight. And I thank you for that. Because I wasn't sure if I wanted to open this up or not. And I said, you know what? It's a nighttime broadcast. We already did our main one. We can hang loose on this. And then we had all those internet problems. So that would have been terrible if that happened on the earlier show. That's the serious show. This is the hangout show. So thanks for hanging out with me. Have a good morning or a good night, depending on where you're watching from in the world. All my friends in green, thank you for supporting the channel. All my friends in white, thank you for being kind and friendly. You're welcome in here when you're kind and friendly at all times, except, as I mentioned, during the main broadcast. It takes one person to ruin it, And we put a lot of time and money into this just to have somebody try and tear it down. Somebody we've never provoked, somebody who has no justification. They just decided they don't like me. I don't know who they are. I don't know why they bother. And I don't know, even if they were successful at whatever it is they're trying to accomplish, nobody would know it was because of them. Who would they tell? They can't grab a hold of the channel and talk to my audience. They could have their own social media, but you don't know who they are. So if they accomplish anything, they're the only ones who would know. It's not like you could brag about it. I took Carey's channel down. Who are you talking to? The people that watch my channel aren't watching your social media. So the whole thing doesn't make any sense. Never provoked anybody. People decide they want to come at me. And as a result, we've had to close the chat room down during the main videos in order to stop the harassment, the bullying. It's unacceptable. So when I turned chat on tonight, this was an experiment to see if this is, am I just opening myself up to more abuse, or are people going to be kind? And you guys have been kind, and I thank you for that. And tolerating all of the internet connection issues has been insane, and I appreciate your patience as we work through that. I'm not going to work too much on it because we're leaving here anyway. So even if I figure out what it is, it's not worth fixing. We're going to live with it. And if we can't fix it, we're going to get in Studio C faster because I got a lot of content to make. And I can't afford to have the content interrupted with an unreliable stream and, make it a miserable experience for the viewer and myself. So that'll be a quick motivator to get me over there to Studio C ahead of schedule, just so I can keep doing my job. And thank goodness this is happening now, that it wasn't happening, throughout the year this year, because I have no control over it. I will have control over everything at Studio C. So that's where I'm at. We're putting a ton of money in Studio C, a ton of money. Walls have been completely, wallpaper removed, baseboards, crown molding, all that's gone. Any holes in the walls for like phone lines, patch those back up. We don't use any landlines. So cover it up, make it look like a full wall again. I don't want the hole or a blank wall plate there. Let's paint it. Let's rip the flooring out. Let's put new flooring in. Let's rip all the lighting out and ceiling fans. They're all from the 80s, 90s. Let's put modern lighting, LEDs, no more incandescent bulbs, new ceiling fans that have remote controls and not pull handles. All of that stuff is being modernized. And that's just the studio. There's also attached to the studio a kitchen and a hallway, and it won't match if we don't do that too. So all of that flooring, all of that painting, it is a massive job and it is a ton of money. But when it's done, it should be done right. It should be the best studio I can make in that space. I hope I make my investment back. And this is part of being self-employed. You've got to invest. You got to spend money to make money. I hope this works. Otherwise, it's a bit of a gamble, but I think I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was good. This has been under construction now, this renovation, since middle of June. So at least 6 weeks we've been working on this. And we probably have another 20 weeks of work. But that's out the studio area, as far as I'm concerned. That's pretty well done. I have some electrical work to do. I'll do that. I'm not putting flooring in. That's beyond my skill level. It's very time consuming. And I think you guys are going to love it. If you saw the before and you look at what we did, it's completely transformed. Much more modern. So I can't wait to show it to you. Thank you guys for hanging out with me tonight. I need to go and just rest up a little bit. This is a normal day for me when the cameras turn off, just so you know. I'm usually working till about 2 in the morning. So it's only 11:30 here. It's still pretty early for me. And then I start prepping. When I wake up, I'll start prepping for tomorrow's video. Mara's taken care of the thumbnail and the video notes. All of that's been done. And, I just have to focus on the work and, getting the camera straight, making sure internet works. And then maybe there'll be a video Saturday. I don't know. Here's my issue, and I swear I'm going to go here in a minute. I have a ton of work to do here, but I have a ton of work to do over at Studio C. And a lot of the stuff that I could do at Studio C that I'm doing here, I could do over there if, for example, I had this bench. But if I move this bench, how the heck am I going to make any more videos in Studio B without the bench? And this is a big bench. I'm going to have to rent like a U-Haul truck, a box truck. It's on wheels. It'll be easy. Just wheel it in. But the bench alone doesn't make the studio. I still have the lights to move. I have the cameras and the tripods and the tripod heads and all the cabling and the wiring for power for the HDMI. And then there's lighting. Like I mentioned, setting the camera. When I say lighting, I'm referring to camera exposure settings are going to be different in the other studio. I've got sound echo to deal with. And when it's all dialed in, it's going to be so awesome. But it's one of those things like, well, which one's more important? Do I try and get this stuff done here? Or do I try and get the Studio C ready? And that means I have to shut everything down. And then I'm going to be off schedule. And I'm trying to do it all. Keep the schedule, keep broadcasting on the normal schedule. And at the same time, in my free time, get Studio C up and running. I'm not going to buy a second bench. This was $900 for this bench. I have 2 benches, though. I might switch to the other bench because it has a table that raises and lowers. That might be better. This bench is a little bit high up for me. There's so much I don't know yet about Studio C. And I won't know until I get all the equipment over there. And I won't be able to broadcast until not only the equipment is over there, but everything is set up and plugged in. Even if it's terrible video and audio quality, it's still a lot of work just to get to that point. I think a lot of people think YouTube content creators are just turning their cameras on and broadcasting, and some do. But a lot of the big channels, they have many employees working full time to make that production possible. I have me, I have Mara, I have our handyman who's, doing a lot of the reconstructive work there, the renovation. I'm doing part of it, but nothing compared to what he's doing. He's doing the hard. He's doing it by himself. He's got a lot to do. We're keeping him busy. So anyway, that's what's going on, and that's why everything seems so chaotic. why I'm making so many videos lately is I'm just trying to get caught up, get this stuff done, get it over there. And there's so much of it. I let myself get backlogged way too far. I did not realize how bad I let it go. It's almost like a disease. I've got so many half-built computers here. They need to be completed. If I move the parts by themselves, how will I know which part and which screw goes to which computer? So if it's bad now, it'll get worse. I need to take care of it here while I have the bench. You getting this? You're starting to get my pressure? And yeah, every day I take another bite, and hopefully we'll get through it all in time and on budget. That'll wrap it up for me for tonight. Hey, just thanks for hanging out. It was a lot of fun, except for the internet issues. And we'll see you all tomorrow. As always, Fridays at 1 o'clock, we're always live. I hope you'll join us then. Until then, bye for now.